boy, oh boy.
Wow, what's up, dude?
Nothing much. I'm here for this ethnostate debate.
Wow.
Did you change your name to Vegan Destiny, or did Isaac do it?
I don't think I can change my name on the server.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Oh shit!
The guy that is eternally chewing tobacco. All right, gentlemen. We're discussing the ethnostate today, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Sure. What's your idea? Like, I guess, like, how do you envision an ethnostate? Like, talk to me about what your idea is.
All right, let's see. So, I don't know. So we can't have in the case of America, this isn't for Europe. In the case of America, we can't have an ethnic state. We have to have a race state. So, and that will just be like a percentage of whiteness. The percentage is really unknown to me at the moment. Like, it'll be something that'll be discussed whenever some like momentum gets going. Probably somewhere around like 25, 33%. But that's for the case of America, of course. It's we're the Amerimuts for a reason, you know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It doesn't have to be 100% white either. I just would like upwards of like 93%.
Wait, I thought you just said 25 to 35%.
No. That's like how white or non-white you can have before you're unqualified. I mean 93% population. I want 93% of the country to be white.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
All right, because not even Japan's like 100%. They're still like 97.
So you want 93% of the country to be at least...
No, it's just, I'm not. The whole point of me saying that was just to say there could be exceptions.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So you're saying you want 93% of the country to be 25 to 35% white? Is that... No,
they can only be 25% non-white.
Okay, so 75% white.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand. So we have an ethno-state country. 93% of the country needs to be at least 75% white in order to make room for exceptions, right?
Yeah. Exception? Well, I don't know. Yeah, sure. Extraordinary exceptions.
Okay. And then just to flesh out your position more, we'll ask the how first. So how do you envision making this happen?
Well, see, that's the hard part. So hypothetically, I don't know. It's just spreading the word at this point. That's some big league stuff right there of actually putting it into action.
Okay, so say you spread the word to everybody. How does that get you to 93% of the country to be white?
So just getting like represented in the media, or not the media, since that'll probably never happen. But just like getting our beliefs spread around, I think a lot of people would like agree with us in that, and I think that would be.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking for like the mechanism by which you increase the overall whiteness of the country. Are you going to make people leave, or are you going to kill people?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, mass deportation. I'm not like people frame it like we're like genocide and whatnot, but that's not the case at all. It's just mass deportations.
Let's say they don't want to be deported. What's your next step?
Well, if they don't want to be deported and they meet us with violence, we'll meet them with equal violence.
Okay, so yes to genocide then. I don't know why you said no to that. So,
no, genocide.
Well,
no,
so
absolutely not.
Well, yeah, so we have mass deportation. What?
Let me look up something to make sure I'm working with the right definitions.
Okay, well, we don't have to call it genocide. We can call it the mass killing of a bunch of people of a certain race, I guess.
It's only mass killing if they resist. They only die if they resist.
Okay, but let's assume for a minute, okay, so I don't know how many real-life people you know, but let's assume for a minute that somebody that has been in this country for possibly generations doesn't want to just leave and go to some strange place. They're probably going to resist, right? Along with a healthy number of white people as well. So, I don't want to say genocide, I guess, since that's like a trigger word for you. But like killing all of these people is something that has to be on the table for you, right? State enforced violence.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay. So there's that part. Why do you want to do an ethnostate? That's the next. I need to hear this part.
All right. So I've come to notice that we're very much different. Like race kind of dictates like our actions in a way. and our culture. I believe our culture derives from our race and just like how we were evolutionized and whatnot. And yep, evolutioned, whatever the word is.
Okay. Okay, do you have any other thoughts you want to get out before we start walking through these?
Well, I don't know. I just believe we're different. I think that's all that I really need to advocate segregation. I mean, we all engage in self-segregation to some extent or another.
That's a false comparison, though. Self-segregation is different than state-enforced by acts of violence segregation. These are two totally different things.
No, I'm not using it to justify it. I'm just like pointing that way.
Well, okay,
Right.
but when you
It's
say,
in the conversation.
yeah, sure. When I ask a question, you go, "Well, we do this anyway." That it kind of sounds like you're providing that as a justification.
Okay, I take it back.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's fine. I'm not trying to make you say anything you don't want to say. So if you feel like I'm unfairly
No, it's
restating your opinion, feel free to tell me. Okay, I don't want to trigger
Carry on.
anybody. So I mean, like the first thing where everything kind of falls apart, but we don't have to go too hard on this. Is it sounds like you have no real way to measure whiteness. I don't know what you mean by 75% white. What does that mean?
Well, just white European.
Okay, but like, what? Let's say that. Do you know who I am? Or I guess I'm asking, like, do you know what I look like?
Destiny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do I get to be in the white ethnostate or no?
I don't know. I would say. Well, I don't know. This is really semantic. It's something I'm not qualified to talk about.
Well, this isn't
But
semantics. This is like
me,
central to your point.
If it was me, I would probably just do it based off looks. And if there's like a questionable line there, then we'd probably do some genetic testing.
Okay, cool. So I posted my picture in chat. Do I look white enough for the ethnostate?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm 50% Cuban. So does that mean that like any 50% Hispanic person, or I don't even know if Cubans consider us, but like
I don't know. I wouldn't consider myself an expert on like telling colors apart from non-colors.
okay, so who is that how can you not?
I don't know who the expert is.
I guess like the thing is that like you feel strong enough about separating people into these two groups, white and non-white, that you're willing to sanction state violence to do it, but you don't know how you would separate these people into their respective groups.
I could just say we could do genetic testing on everyone. If that would make you happy.
I don't think that genetic testing is going to turn up the answer that you want, though.
What answer would it turn up?
I mean, genetic tests don't come back saying white or negroid or colored. It's not how genetic testing works.
I mean, when I refer to like what I'm thinking of when I think of like 23andMe and how it shows you like what percentage European you are and what percentage like whatever you are.
Sure. So you want to do want to do ancestry then?
Yes. Is that what it goes by?
Well, that's what genetic testing tells you. It can approximate like your ancestry based on genetic clusters that existed.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever 23andMe does, that's probably what it will go by.
Okay. Are you comfortable with the fact that a lot of people that are very white probably won't qualify due to that testing, and that you're going to have minorities that will qualify, like people that are clearly colored will probably qualify due to that type of genetic testing? That seems like it's not going to get you to the place where you want to get it to.
I don't know. What do you think is a better alternative?
Well, I'm not in favor of ethnostates. I think that grouping people based on the way they look is a bad way to group people. So I don't really know. I mean, I would suggest if you want to make this argument, I feel like you need a much stronger way to divide people into white and non-white. But the problem is historically the category of white has always been arbitrary. So so I don't know how you would go about doing these groupings.
What do you mean by it's arbitrary? Like you're saying you can't identify it?
Well, what I'm saying is that the concept of white is in a lot of ways socially constructed, that groups that previously weren't considered white have now become considered white. So it's like a hard category. There's not like a rigid scientific definition for whiteness, so everything kind of becomes relativistic or arbitrary, I guess. Like if you read words by our founding fathers, for instance, I think they only considered British people it was like British people and one other group of people, white, but like Spaniards and Germans and other types of people were considered not of pure whiteness, so, which are people that you would very clearly consider white today. So so I'm not sure how you would define.
Well, I would definitely consider the Irish, the British, the Germans, all them white. I think we know what white is. It's just like when I say white European, I think we know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about.
Do you know what a circular argument is?
Nope.
So it's kind of like, let's say I say that action X is disgusting, and somebody says, well, why is it disgusting? I don't think it's disgusting. And you go, well, it is because it is. It's common sense. Well, that doesn't really help the other person. So let's say that I disagree with you on what your notion of white is. Let's say I say Africans are white, like people coming, not like white South Africans, but like people from like Kenya and shit, like very black people. Let's say that I say they're white, and then you say no. Well, now I have to ask you, well, okay, well, what is your definition of whiteness? You can't just say, well, we know because it is. You have to be able to quantify that somehow. If it's like
what if I just said white European?
I guess. Yeah, so you just want to say like white European people? What about white people from like South Africa and stuff?
I mean, there aren't the majority of South Africans like Dutch.
Probably from some colonial shit or whatever. Or I guess you say you want to do like the ancestry thing, so you would go back via ancestry. But then we run into the thing before where like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure you could get people that look not necessarily white but can be traced back to European ancestry because of their families, their generational history, and all that shit. Like. We don't have. I mean, this is a really hard part for you, so we don't have to go too much into this. But it seems like having like a really rigid way. This is a problem that I notice with a lot of ethnostate people is they're willing to make exceptions for whatever includes them. For instance, like that. Are you familiar with James Alsop and Nick Fuentes?
Yeah.
Sure. I think both of them are avowed white nationalists. They don't like hide it or whatever. Like Fuentes has Hispanic origin. Like, is this somebody that gets to be in the ethnostate? Like. He does like soul math in order to calculate his percentage whiteness, and he says that his percentage is high enough. But like, here's an ethics problem for you. Let's say that you get your white ethnostate made, okay? Let's say that somehow we determine 75% whiteness in everybody. Let's say that at that point, somebody starts a movement in their country. And it's like, okay, well, we want 90% whiteness now, and we want to get rid of all the people that are less than 90% white. Like, what if you fell under that category? What argument would you use to protect yourself from being cast out?
Well, I mean, would it really be that far of a stretch? Just like me saying I want to kick out somebody that's like 50% non-white versus me saying someone that's like 90%. It's not. There's not that much difference. If it's like, if we knew, or whoever's doing it, they knew, like it would obviously make the country a lot better than what it is. Then like,
well, we haven't
they have the force to back it up. Who am I? Like, I can't really do anything.
Well, I don't think we haven't gotten to that part yet. We can come back to that. But let's say somebody claims that they can make the country a lot better by kicking out people less than 95% white.
See, that's why I made my margins probably like 25% non-white, especially for the case of America.
But the problem is like you're setting margins. You're setting the bar just low enough that you can pass over it. But what I'm saying is, let's say that you've now made it, because you've essentially made it permissible to deport people based on race up to the point of using state-enforced violence, right, or state-sanctioned violence. Well, now let's say that a new movement starts in your ethnostate and they want to get rid of people that aren't of a certain level of whiteness that you don't pass under. What argument can you use that works for you that Hispanics couldn't have used that worked for them? Like, what argument could you possibly give?
There is none. There absolutely is none. It's like I could just point to like how people with like I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
And I just if we knew, if like the numbers supported that it would make the country better, then it was just like we're in the same place as like the Mexicans were. Everybody else
so
put it out.
let's focus on that, okay? What do you mean when you say make the country better?
Well, okay. All right, so we'll start with the blacks in terms of like their crime. Like, you know, I'm sure you've heard the 13%, 50% violent crime.
Okay.
That's a common one.
Okay.
All right, so that's where I'll start. Anybody that's like overrepresented in crime and overrepresented in like taking more in taxes than they put in. Well, I don't know. I guess both of those could be fixed just by some like tax changes and watch. I don't know.
Okay, so let's start on the first one. Why not just deport criminals then? Why black people? There are white criminals as well. Why not just deport people that commit crime?
Yeah, that's the thing where I disconnect like the whole civic nationalist thing is just like I want to help my people, the white people. Like I want to help them, and they like it's probably gonna sound bad from the outside, which I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't really care for helping them. I just want to help my people.
Why are white people your people? I can understand like your family, but how do you identify with all white people? It just seems kind of like
our white. It's just we're just white.
And so you share a common bond with them, or where are you?
Yeah.
What do you live in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me what state you live in?
No.
What state are you from?
As in, no, I'm not telling you.
Oh no, you're not. Okay. Do you think that say like a white person that lives in like rural Montana shares a lot in common with say a white person that lives like in the city in New York City? Do you think these two people have a ton in common?
Probably not.
I feel like you could find minority people that you have more in common with than some white people in certain parts of the United States. I'm guessing you probably don't have...
Maybe I could just take like the whole, just like the bond over race just out of the equation and just put it down to strictly like the benefit on the society. And even then, then somebody might say like Jews and Asians have like higher IQ and they put more into the economy than they take out and whatnot. But even then, I'd say, like, if we look at Asians right now within, like, Australia, anybody that has, like, dual citizenship, like, they're able to come to our countries. When I say our country, I mean, like, Australia, Europe, Canada, U.S., all these countries, and they're able to, like, financially gain off of us at our expense. And they're able to ship that money back to their, like, country of origin.
Okay, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we're getting into complicated economic transactions, which I think are a little bit beyond the scope of this conversation. Remittances and whatnot, sending money back to other countries isn't necessarily a bad thing. Firstly, that's not a one-way transaction. If you go and you work in a country, you're providing your resource of labor to a company to capitalize on to make money. So it's not just you're stealing money.
I think we're both familiar with, like, how the real estate's, like, skyrocketed in places like Australia, Canada, and places in Europe and whatnot. It's like, that's not really something I'd want for us.
Are you like a socialist or a communist?
I could see the argument for socialism. I'm kind of in between on what I want there.
Okay, I guess I would have to learn your economic theory. Because I'm big into capitalism. I don't understand how you would. What is your goal to prevent rising real estate costs, and how does that tie into an ethnostate?
I mean, we can just look at how like the Chinese are buying up all the land, the real estate, and it's causing it to skyrocket. And then someone might say like, well, what's stopping whites from doing the same? And I guess they can, but I would if it was like
one of the reason why places are skyrocketing is because these are massively in demand places where people want to live, right? The market sets the price. It's not like Chinese people can arbitrarily raise the price. The price is raised to a level where people are willing to pay. Right? This is like basic
Do
economy.
you think we should just let anybody, like, just because they want to live here, we should let them in? You're not of that. Like, you don't believe that, do you?
I believe in fully open borders, yeah. But again, I'm a huge...
Fully? Why?
Because I'm a huge
I
capitalist.
guess that's a topic for another time. Huge capitalist. So wait, this might be off topic a little bit. What do you say about tariffs, dude? How do you
Tariffs are horrible. Protectionism is horrible economic theory. No mainstream economist would support the implementation of tariffs.
You'd be competing with somebody from like India who works for like 50 cents an hour in a factory. How do you compete with that? You just like completely abandon the market, and you're like, if we were to open borders today in the U.S., would you just abandon it?
You try to excel at the things that you do better than other countries. It's called comparative advantage. So, for instance, if some country excels in manufacturing or excels in telemarketing centers, you let those countries do that, right? You export. So if you have a company and that company deals with multiple levels of things. So, for instance, let's say that you have a tech. Let's say you sell computers, but you also do tech support, right? There are parts of your like value chain, like parts that go into making your business. If you can export that to another country and save money, ideally you can reinvest that into your company or make your product cheaper or hire more people and do other shit for expanding your company or whatever, right? That's the whole point of letting other countries.
So you want like international businesses, like you want so you're kind of like a globalist.
Yeah, every economist is a globalist. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course. global integration of economies has been massively valuable to first world nations. Yeah.
Really? Do you think it'd be like, even if it was at the detriment of just like the people, like say like we moved all the Africans here just because it was like it would bring more money, it would help us economically, but like the quality of life of the people, like crime skyrocketed, people taking taking a ton, significantly more in taxes than they're putting in, just increasing that. Like it ultimately drove down the quality of life of like the citizens. Would you say it's worth it just in exchange for that like economic growth?
It depends on how you measure quality of life, I guess. Like talking about taxes and talking about crime are two different things. Crime is a bad thing that we should always work to minimize, but I don't think we should do it at great economic detriment, especially when people will over-exaggerate the fuck out of the figures. For instance, immigrants...
Well, who says it has to be at a detriment? Who said like...
Well, for instance, if you're talking about reducing the amount of immigration into the United States, you're talking about doing things that are a detriment to the economy. Immigrants are a massive asset to the American economy. Like, are
they?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about like the jobs that Americans don't want to do?
No, I'm just talking like really basic econ theory that no economist will disagree with.
Like what? Like what jobs are they doing that they're not doing for significantly cheaper than what an American worker would do for?
Okay, so the problem that you're having right now is that you're looking at every economic transaction from only one person, and you're only looking at one side of it. So where you see an immigrant coming in to work cheap labor to steal a job from an American, a business owner might see the ability to open a new store in a place where they couldn't previously afford it. A customer or a citizen might see the ability to purchase a product that they couldn't have afforded before because now it's cheaper. And another small business might see more people buying products from them because people are saving money on other things that they used to purchase. Like you're only looking at these economic transactions through like one very, very, very tiny view, and you're not looking at all the impacts.
I think I understand what you're saying here. And just like there's a whole domino effect of just letting workers for cheaper workers than natives. And that's just something I'm against, because then like why would I, as a business owner, why would I hire my Americans whenever I could just hire illegal immigrants that work for a fraction?
Careful, we're not talking about illegal immigrants. We're just talking about immigrants. And you and you would hire whoever is, I guess, cheaper, right? That's how labor markets work.
So wait, there is no illegal immigrants in an open border thing. So we are talking about these people.
For sure, yeah. Well, yeah, but you use the term illegal.
These people that are willing to work for significantly less than what an American would. It's like robbing the American worker. Not only that, I guess there's the good thing that comes out of it is cheaper goods, but that's not really something I'd really be accepting of, and at the detriment to the people. And some people being robbed the opportunity of a job, some people being robbed of
Sure. So I mean, if this was a problem, I would agree with you. But unemployment in the United States is at 4%. It's lower than it even should be. So I don't think we're having this problem right now where immigrants are stealing all of the jobs, firstly. Secondly, immigrants can create more jobs because as immigrants move in and you open up more businesses to hire these people, native people can fill in complementary roles such as managerial positions or other higher paying positions where they're working over these people. Thirdly, other businesses can flourish because if you're able to hire out cheaper labor and spend less money, paying labor, you can charge less for your products, which means people have more to spend on other things. There's a whole ecosystem of what happens when you reduce the cost of labor. And also, if you want to help this in terms of helping natives for wages, you could also just implement a minimum wage, which seems to be an effective policy to make it so that people can't hire out people for too little money.
Illegals. But if we're talking in a open border society where everybody's just welcome to in, then sure. I guess that's an option, but that's not really something I'm open to.
Sure, but so a minimum wage would prevent that. I can hire out an immigrant for 20 cents on the dollar or whatever, right?
Well, I guess no. I wouldn't say that's an answer, because then they can just do how they're doing it right now. Well, illegal immigrants in the U.S. right now by just doing under the table transactions.
Well, you make that illegal and you try to enforce it.
You make it illegal. Illegal immigration's illegal. It doesn't.
You keep conflating illegal immigrants and then saying in your open borders policy, right? If I wanted open borders, there are no illegal immigrants, but it would be illegal to pay somebody under the table, right? This is something that you would crack down on, or try to, I guess. We already tried to, but
we try to crack down on a lot of things. It doesn't seem to stop them. And what's the
Okay, hold on. But stop. Your argument of okay, every argument that you make has to be consistent. When you say that some things are illegal and we try to crack down on them, but we can't do it, that doesn't mean you throw out that whole thing. Nobody would say we need to make all cars illegal, and then somebody goes, why? And it's well, because a lot of people speed, and you're like, okay, well, speeding is right.
Fair.
Yeah, okay. So I don't agree with people paying people under the table for a variety of reasons. One, the worker's not protected at all because they don't get if they get fucked on the job or whatever, they're totally fucked. Two, they probably aren't paying any taxes because it's not like you're filing withholdings or whatever for an employee that you're paying under the table. Three, that person is completely unaccounted for in a lot of different systems that we have like set up right now to track people. Like, so I mean, yeah, obviously paying people under the table is bad. It should be illegal. I don't disagree with that.
So wait, that's how you would run it? Say that you had like your ideal society, you would make it to where doing under the table transactions was illegal?
Well, it currently is. You can't employ somebody and not account for that on your federal tax forms.
No, is that something you'd want as a super capitalist?
I'm not like a libertarian. I agree with our system of taxes and everything. So yeah, I think you should have to account for the income that you pay people. Yeah, that's how our tax system is structured. You have to, I think.
All right, let's go back to the ethnic thing. That was a good point.
Sure. Okay. So like I guess like when I'm basically we're in the why section. I'm trying to find out why you want an ethnostate, and I'm going to be going through these topics. But something to keep in mind, what I'm asking you is why are you using race as a proxy for all of these other issues? So for instance, like when you talk about crime or when you talk about taking in more in taxes, why not focus your deportation on these types of people? So like when you say I want to get rid of black people because a lot of them commit crime, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. The numbers don't lie. But like why not deport white people that commit crime as well and keep black people that don't commit crime?
I would. If that option was presented to me, I'd take it.
Okay, so then what about for the tax thing? What about like deporting people that take more in taxes and keeping all the people that pay more in taxes?
I'd do it.
Okay, then why do you call yourself in favor of an ethnostate? Why not make like a...
Because I think that's the most realistic. You like... Because like if we look at like Nazi Germany, they position themselves against a single enemy, and I think it'd be more easily achieved if we singled out. Well, if we just blanketed all the colors together, right?
Yeah, but
it would just be.
Well, so the problem is you're giving me this like easy to achieve, but like I don't want to revisit this because I'm not trying to harp on this part. But like you can't even give me like a solid definition of what whiteness is. Like I don't even know who your enemy is. Like. You say coloreds, but like Hispanic people are a huge gray area. You said you'd let me into the ethnostate, even though I'm half Cuban.
If we did that ancestry testing, no, okay, all right. So hypothetically here, everybody's getting ancestry tested or whatever you called it, 23andMe. Yeah,
sure, but you're going to get a lot of pro ethnostate white people like Braving Ruin, that are going to come back with ancestry tests that are not going to be happy with the percentage of Europeanness they get. You're just deporting these people? You're like, oh, sorry, dude, I know you look totally white.
Those can be the exceptions.
So then the ancestry test means nothing. You're going back to how you look.
No, exceptions. Exceptions, them being exceptional in helping our movement, then I would make it to where they could stay. Okay,
so if you had like a Hispanic person that looked pretty Hispanic, right? This guy looks like a Pedro or whatever, but he was like, yeah, I don't know if he looks super Hispanic, but like say you have somebody that's like willing to help your movement and everything, do you keep this person in?
Yep.
Okay, so now it looks like you're looking at a system of like values, like you're judging people based on utility to your movement and whatnot. So it seems like you're using a different value system here than just race. So why an ethnostate? Right. Why not?
Well, I mean, how could someone who's actually believes like they are against our... So like if I made the movement on like race boundaries, how would someone who is non-white or like doesn't benefit them? Like people like Fuentes, I think they understand that like...
Because there are self-hating people all the time. Look at Milo Yiannopoulos.
I wouldn't say self-hating.
Milo Yiannopoulos
we can realize what is best.
Sure.
And even if it's to our own detriment,
you can find blacks that hate other blacks because they believe in all the white stuff about how horrible blacks are. You can find trans people like Blair White that hate other trans people. You can find gay people that hate other gay people like Milo. Of course, these people exist.
I wouldn't say hate. That's a strong. I think it's just like you can realize what is better even if it doesn't benefit you.
Well, but the problem is your word "better" here is incredibly arbitrary. Like when you say "better," we need a very strict definition so that we can start measuring metrics. What do you mean by better?
Well, if we believe it would improve our nation and the people that remained,
Okay, your
I would
word.
say it's better.
So improve our nation is another. Like, I need a metric. Improve by what metric?
Okay, all right. Improve crime rates and improve.
Sure, but now we're back where we were before. Like, the best way that you could improve crime in your country probably wouldn't be an ethnostate. It would probably be a state based on income. Like, if we were to forcibly deport or genocide everybody that makes less than $100,000 a year, that would probably be the easiest way to get rid of crime in the United States.
I wouldn't say, like, I hear this a lot, and that, like, it's like not race that dictates, like, there's not why these black people are overrepresented in crime. It's because of their, like, income, not their race. But I mean, we can just look at, like, how, like, a rich black family is still more likely to go to prison and commit crime than that of a poor white family, and I think that kind of throws it out the window.
There's that. That's a really complicated topic, though, because you have to take into account that sentencing for black people is oftentimes more harsh than white people as well, which is empirically borne out.
That also, the thing you're talking about didn't account for repeat offenders, and blacks are more often repeat offenders than not.
Okay, I don't want to get into ad hominems here, but what is your level of education?
I am in college right now.
Okay, so you're in college. You're a college student. I'm guessing you're working on an undergrad. What do you think are the chances that you stumbled upon the single confounding variable that hundreds of people, thousands of people that have studied disproportionate sentencing in the criminal justice system never ever thought about? That you discovered the one confound, the one variable that accounts for all of the disproportionate sentencing and nobody thought about it. Do you really think that none of the data takes into account repeat offenders?
What do they claim is the reason
that for the
why?
same crime, for the exact same crime with similar criminal histories, black people are more likely to be sentenced and will be sentenced for longer periods than white people. That's the claim that seems to be borne out in a ton of empirical data. I think even the ACLU has, like, lawsuits or whatever against
why? Do they say why?
Probably
why
for a variety of reasons. I don't know. I guess it depends on. I mean, most people will point towards race.
Okay.
It's really
I
hard.
think it'd be more realistic to talk about, like, why are blacks more often repeat offenders?
I mean, race is a big part of our. No. It's not just repeat offenders. The reason why black people are sentenced more isn't just because they're repeat offenders.
Well, do you think there's, like, systematic racism? Like,
of course, to some extent, yeah, of course.
Of course, huh? Systematic racism. And wouldn't that be an even bigger argument for, like, there will always be in-group preference in a way, and, like, maybe we should be segregated, let them have their own community. Maybe even, like, a lot of like a part of the United States for every race, right? I might even be open to that. It's just
no, because, like, the problem is different people. No. Because the problem is that you could segregate on any arbitrary number, and that wouldn't be. It just, you can't have a state. When I say state, I mean like a nation that functions that way. And why do you laugh at like systematic forms of racism? Like, Jim Crow was literally like a generation and a half ago.
I mean,
like,
it would be systematic. Jim Crow would be systematic. What we're talking about is just, like, judges with a preference. That's not systematic.
Well, if every judge leans a certain way, I mean,
no, that's not systematic. Even if every judge did, like, sentence, like, black people to 10 years more than whites, it's still not systematic. It'd be systematic if they had laws in place or legislation that said, hey, black people are sentenced to 10 years more than whites. It is law.
Okay, I think a lot of people disagree with that, but I'll even grant you that. I don't think that distinction matters, though. At the end of the day, it still impacts black people the same way, whether there's a law or there's not a law.
So since we made that, how do you combat these racist judges that are all over the place?
I don't know, through a lot of different means. I mean, culturally, we're moving in certain directions, different types of job training, different types of oversight committees, different types of independent reviews. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at these issues. I don't know the single best way to do it. I haven't studied the issue that extensively, but I'm sure there's been a ton of suggestions made by different lawyer organizations or the ACLU.
Yeah, more black judges. That's probably what they'd say. It's just what I'm getting at. It's like, it's a meme. Like, how are you going? You can't combat that.
Why can't you combat? Why do you think that people?
How do you combat police that, like, engage in, like, police brutality more on, like, black people? It's just, how do you sure, you can, like, put all these cameras on them and say, hey, don't do that. I'm warning you, or else you'll be punished. But it's just like, well, first of all,
what you just suggested sounds like a really great start. Body cameras are an amazing thing. They protect police officers and they protect citizens.
And what we're doing now is just seeing exactly what's happening. And most of these things where they claim, like, police brutality is just them being Negroes.
Okay, so step one is accountability, and body cameras will help us from that. And then we design ways to combat it and move from there. So you have body cameras. If people are being racist or whatever, you hold them accountable, and then you move from there. Sure.
All right, sure, I can agree to that under the way things are currently run. I'd agree to that.
Okay, so we've kind of circled back to our previous issue where you go back to crime. Why don't we just deport all criminals and keep all non-criminals?
Because I think it would be a lot easier to just get rid of the coloreds and then work up from like as white people as a whole instead of just abandoning them.
Okay, I don't.
Because like we could say like why do you want to abandon blacks?
You have to have a better argument, then it would be easier because we've already admitted
it'd be way more like.
If we were trying to get the whole country on board with something, I'm pretty sure it'd be easier to convince people en masse to get rid of all the criminals rather than to get rid of all the colored people. I think that my argument would be easier there, although this is a little bit conjecture. I don't know how we would quantify what's easier, but I could imagine a politician selling a message where we need to get rid of all the criminals to make our country better, to get rid of crime. It's easy to do it. We've already got them all in the prisons. Just deport everybody in a prison. Like, they've already had a lot of their rights revoked from them anyway. I feel like that would be easier than we need to deport every single person that is of an arbitrary level of darkness from our country. I think that my solution would actually be easier than yours. How could you know?
Yeah, I think I can agree to that. By crime. All right, yeah. I said earlier, didn't I, that I would accept that if I was given the option? Because I'd be achieving nearly the same result.
Maybe, except you'd be keeping a lot of black people and you'd be deporting a ton of white people. The raw numbers of white people... Well, okay, so, I mean, like, if we look at crime in the United States, isn't it, like, of all the criminals, like, 40% are white, right? 40% are black and, like, 20% are... Isn't it, like, a rough breakdown of the numbers or some shit? So you're going to be deporting about as many white people as black people.
Look it up.
So I just don't understand why using race as a proxy for crime when we could just use crime.
I don't know. Maybe it's just something that I seem to find interesting.
Well, so
because like we could just do it based off we just give criteria like what we want and then we just make that. But then we'd still be losing like okay. So another big one is like I value whiteness and white culture.
Okay, there
right?
we go. So. It sounds like, are you familiar with the term motivated reasoning?
I can probably guess what it means.
Okay, sure. So just to be clear, like motivated reasoning is, let's say I really want to, let's say that I really want to stick my dick inside of a fucking car exhaust, right? Let's say that I go out and somebody's like, hey, you shouldn't do this. And then I like make like 50 million arguments for why I should be allowed to do it or why it's okay to do it. And you can tell that I'm just arguing it because I really want to be able to do this thing. I don't really care what the argument is. I just really want to get that end result of fucking my car's exhaust. It feels like when I talk to a lot of ethnostate people, it feels like we're engaging constantly in this weird motivated reasoning where it's very clear that you don't want colored people in your country, but why not just do that? Like, let's do the ethical or let's do the philosophical argument of having colored people in the country. Don't bring up like crime or taxes or any weird stuff like that because it's clear that you don't really care about that.
If I just say I just want black colored people gone just because I like white people more, I think it would stand a lot better if I just if I had some numbers as to why.
Well, but the problem is all of those numbers. But the
normie.
problem is that those numbers betray you. I mean, it works on the average normie because the average person is a fucking moron. But if you really want to have like a solid, good argument, right? You can't like if somebody says I want to get rid of all the coloreds, you're like, okay, well, why? Well, because of crime. Well, why not get rid of all criminals? Okay, well, because of taxes. Well, why not get rid of everybody that takes more in taxes? Okay, well, IQ. Well, why not just get rid of all the low IQ people, right? But it always comes back to well, I would want to keep the white ones and get rid of the black ones. So let's just go to the.
Yeah, you're right. I think I am engaging in your motivated reasoning.
Sure.
And
so,
I probably couldn't tell you why, and like all the stuff I've given you today is just like my confirmation bias and just like trying to sell you on why I want these things. But I probably can't articulate why I want it. I just want it, and okay. I like the I think I can. So like, do you think culture?
Well, here, wait, real quick. Okay, so we're moving away from all of the hard empirical stuff. So things like crime and tech, right? And we're going to move into more softer things. I just want to make sure so that, or I'm understanding, right? We're moving into like culture and whatnot now.
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, okay, go for it. Now we're on to culture and stuff.
Okay, so do you think culture would be like intertwined with race in any way?
I would say it is in a correlated way. Like people of certain races probably tend to do certain things a certain way, but that's just because of geographically where they live and the type of stuff they participate in.
Do you think like a certain race could share certain values just
yeah, for sure.
Like,
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, from there, I'd like to say I value whiteness and white culture, in that like we could just look around and see all the countries that like all the prospering ones. Like, well, if I was gonna do that, I could just do it by IQ, since like all like the prospering countries are above the IQ threshold or something. But another one would be I would want my
hold
children...
on, because I have to make sure that we're not doing the proxy bullshit again. When you say I could just do it by IQ, does that mean that you think that a white person with an IQ of 120?
No, that was just me thinking out loud like a dummy.
Okay, so we're getting rid of that, because my question is going to be: would a white IQ 120 person share more in common with a black 120 IQ person than with a white 100 IQ person?
That I'd say no.
Okay, so then the IQ, that was total garbage. So I'm throwing that out. Okay, go ahead. So we're at value, whiteness, and white culture.
White, oh yeah, value whiteness. Oh yeah, so it's just like I think whites. Oh, because we can just look at like voting patterns in the U.S. right now, and women. Women are a perpetrator of this too, and we can just look at like overwhelmingly white and white males, mostly white. I'm just gonna say white. So mostly white people vote overwhelmingly for these things like smaller government, individual liberties and whatnot, like First, Second Amendments, and just more like freedom as an individual. These are like things that white people strive for. I mean, we can just look at voting patterns in the U.S. and we can see like how everybody non-white.
I have to caution you. I'm sorry, I'm being really strict on this, and you can, if you think I'm being unfair, you can tell me. But you bring up Second Amendment. There are the large majority of Europeans look at American gun laws and think that we're fucking insane, and most of them, especially in Western Europe, would do the exact same when it comes to healthcare as well. So I would caution you in thinking that all white people across the world are united on these types of liberal ideas. The idea of like Second Amendment rights and healthcare, these are not, and even small government, these are not things that white people as a race across the planet are united on. Like if you go to any Scandinavian,
just saying Americans.
Well, but now you're making the argument for civic nationalism, which you rejected earlier, right? Because you don't want to be a civic nationalist, you want to be an ethnostate person.
No. So what I was getting at is like, so white American culture. What if I just put that little stipulation in there?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So white American culture, I value that for the reasons I listed previously.
Sure.
And we can see how these people, like majority coloreds and upwards of margins of like 70%, they're voting to take away our First, Second Amendments for larger government, more welfare, all these things. Up margins of over like 70%, dude. And it's just these people, the way I want to live is not compatible with the way these people want to live, and it'd be against my best interest to allow them here and allow them to have a vote. If I want to maintain the lifestyle that I've come to know and love, then it's not my best interest to allow these people to immigrate here and to stay here.
Gotcha.
Like, don't you value? I'm sure you value the First Amendment. What about the Second?
The Second, not really. No, not as much.
Not really. Really? How do you plan on upholding that First Amendment? We can like look at everywhere else where they have no guns. Their freedom of speech is now gone. I think we both know that.
Where do you think the freedom of speech is gone?
Okay. Example: UK, Australia, Canada.
They have no freedom of speech in these countries. The freedom of the press is totally gone. And
no, I'm not. They're being impeded on. We're in the it's a process that's ongoing. But are you going to deny me and saying that they don't have freedom of speech in the same capacity that Americans do?
No, I think that Americans tend to do better than other countries. I'm pretty radical when it comes to freedom of speech. I can see the arguments that other countries make. I disagree with them, but I don't think that we have our freedom of speech laws because we have the ability to fight and kill the government if they step too far over boundaries. That just seems like a strange argument to make. I mean,
step over. What? We said it one more time, pretty please.
I don't think that our First Amendment exists because if the government tries to make a law against freedom of the press, they think that we're going to come after them with guns.
Why not? I think our Second Amendment is like probably one of the biggest factors as to why we haven't seen all these like hate speech laws that the like Europe and Canada is seeing right now.
Okay.
I think that is a huge contributor.
So you're making the affirmative here. So how? I guess I have to ask how, because I would disagree. I would say I don't think that's very relevant at all.
Like it's obvious there's an agenda being pushed to achieve these things, to like enact some hate speech laws and to like put some.
America already has hate speech laws.
Does it? I thought it was just limited to like things like yelling fire in a theater and things along those lines.
Well,
or like
are you
defamation.
familiar with the concept of a protected class? Like if you, for instance, if you own a building, you can't discriminate against the type of people that are allowed to rent there based on race, family status, veteran status, age. If you're an employer and you have employees, you're not allowed to make hateful statements or discriminate against people based on these protected classes. We got a whole slew of things in the United States, and even sexuality and whatnot, and gender and whatnot. Sexuality in some places like New York City. But yeah, there's a ton of protected classes in the United States that you're not allowed to be hateful against or discriminate against, especially if you're a building owner or if you're an employer.
You're right.
But I guess what I'm asking is, like, by what mechanism? Let's say that tomorrow the Second Amendment was gone. By what mechanism would the government get rid of all your free speech? Like, who do you think would push that?
I don't know. I mean, we're seeing it happen right now in Europe, and it's getting worse by the day.
Okay.
Who's to say that we are special in that we are just immune?
Okay, so like
we've already seen
I'd like to keep it limited to the U.S. just for purpose of this conversation, and I feel really bad doing this, but I have to ask you: in Europe, can you give me an example of a country in Europe that's pushing more aggressively and getting rid of speech? Like, what are you talking about there?
UK, hands down.
Okay, so like
Canada too. They're trying to make it or they might have already, where they made it like if you discriminate off of what's the sexual alignment or something like that, whatever you identify as. Like if you misgender somebody, that's it. You can like face some kind of penalty, not penalty, but like charge.
Okay, so I'm guessing
it's just like only going to get worse as these people.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm very familiar with the Canada stuff. I'm not as familiar with the UK stuff. So like in the UK, you're telling me that. So we can get into C16 memes in a second. So you're telling me in the United Kingdom that there is like new laws or new legislation being passed that's like cracking down on hate speech or something?
Absolutely. Are you not familiar with like the okay, I think a better one would be Germany and the Munster thing, and they were saying there's a
okay, wait, hold on, before we go too far. Okay, so what can we pick a country and then pick some legislation that we want to talk about? So we started with we went UK, Canada, and now we're going to Germany. So which state?
I'll just say Europe as a whole.
Well, we can't say
specific. Germany, Munster.
You can't say Europe as a whole because it's a very American thing to say. Europe is comprised of many different countries. People in Germany, people in the United Kingdom, people in France and Spain are all very different people. It's not like as an American, we might look at them all as white people, but in Europe, they very much have their own states, their own countries. They don't just see themselves as a collection of amorphous Europeans.
All right, so I'll run with Germany this time then.
Okay, so we'll do Germany.
So the Munster, whatever it is, they had a thing the other day, another truck of peace, and there's people that got videos, and the local police is saying, do not publish the video or else you face charges, like hate speech charges or something. And just to like protect this like Muslim guy that just ran over a bunch of people with the truck.
Okay, so is this a new law?
I think you're looking for me to tell you legislation, and I don't have that. I just have these examples here.
Okay, so you think that in that situation, that if the police were to say don't do this because of a law that you just said already exists, you think that people would take out their guns and kill the police and then publish it anyway? That's what would happen if they had firearms, or?
Mate, it just I think that depends on like how strongly they feel about free speech, because like you said earlier, not every white is the same, right? Like we all have different values. I think that's
that's my claim, but you're the one saying that white people are some similar group of people.
No, I changed it to American white culture.
Whoa, okay.
That was just an example of like how these things are like an agenda being pushed to limit our free speech and how it's working.
Sure. I mean, we can go back to that point then if you want. So we're moving on from there aren't really laws being passed all over Europe to limit free speech. That's not really happening. I don't think. I've never heard of that.
What do you mean it's not happening?
Well,
even like Holocaust denial, that's a limit on freedom of speech.
Okay, is that recent or did that happen right after World War II?
Well, I mean, probably back then.
Okay, so to reiterate what
I mean, does it?
To reiterate,
how much does it matter?
Well, because you're making it sound like, I'm sorry, you can tell me if I'm incorrect, but it sounded like your initial claim was that free speech is being more and more curtailed in Europe. That Europe, I guess, all of Europe is legislating against free speech, but I don't think that's happening.
Isn't it just like a really broad like hate speech? couldn't like so like that's being all right. So I'll change it up here. It's like they're using their hate speech laws and they're just like redefining the definition of hate speech to make it where and something that like they see as like against the narrative to be hate speech, and like they're just using the ambiguity of the term hate speech to censor more and more of their speech, right?
I would have to see some of that.
Gender
Like,
thing.
sure. So
That is a very recent one.
we can talk about that in America if you want, and maybe in Canada if you want, because I'm very familiar with that. I don't think you would disagree with it even. So in the United States, we have these things called protected classes. A protected class means that if you discriminate somebody based on that protected class, there's a special legal protection that comes in for these types of people. So for instance, if I call you a fuckwad and I'm your employer, then I'm just being a dick, and maybe you can get in trouble for employee harassment or something. I don't know. But like if I call you a fuckwad because you're old, or a fuckwad because you are black, or a fuckwad because you're a woman, if I make that clear, then this is a type of discrimination that calls under special protections under U.S. U.S. law. In some places, like I know in New York City and probably in other places, basically what people have done is they've said, hey, we need to add transgender discrimination under these same protections. That's what the C-16 bill in Canada is about. That's what the legislation in New York was about. I mean, like, that's really all it is basically adding them under the same protected class as other groups that are already protected classes.
Right.
It's not making
Okay,
like
I think that's something that could also be very ambiguous too, because then we just like redefine who's protected under the protected classes.
Well, sure, that's the point of adding them under the protected classes. Since we already have like gender discrimination and sexuality discrimination there, yeah, why not add people that are transgender as well? Sure.
And like they could say like it's now women as a whole are a protected class, and that like if a man talks to them without consent, it's just like I'm sure we can both see how this can be like they can still have it under the guise of protected classes under that law of like protected classes, but it can still be changed.
Well, it could be abused. Yeah, this is the goal of courts, is to make sure that everything is enforced as intended, right? Yeah, you fight about it in
and that's
the
what I'm
courts.
saying is happening right now, and they're like using these laws they've had in place for a while, and they're just redefining how they're used.
But that's not how law works. If there's a lawyer guy in here, like somebody can correct me. You can't just redefine a law. Legal precedent. Is it jurisprudence? I don't remember the legal terms. I never took any law at all.
I mean, what is the definition of hate speech?
Well, what I'm saying is that like there are like legal precedence is really important when it comes to legal matters. You can't take something that's been done 50 times before and then go in front of a judge and argue, well, it should be different this time because I say so. Like legal precedence and everything is incredibly important. You don't just redefine a law like in a single court case without there being like some massively different thing or some new legislation passed. As far as I'm aware, I've got two lawyer buddies that I talk to you about this stuff sometimes. That's what they tell me. I could be wrong, I guess, but like, I mean, that makes sense to me that legal precedence is really important, and that if you want to redefine something or reinterpret something wholly, it has to go to like the Supreme Court, or new legislation or laws need to be drafted.
Go on.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't think that I guess we were talking about like the transgender. I don't think that like laws are being redefined constantly to throw everybody in jail for hate speech. That seems like a fantasy that's been invented by like Jordan Peterson fans or Sam Harris fans or something. I don't see that happening all over the place.
Oh, you don't see it? Wait, you don't see these things? Like there's new, well, I guess we're not going to call them new, but we can say there's like things going on in Canada where if you misgender somebody, you can now face some like charge.
Yeah, I don't think that's
like,
ever happened.
New. That's never happened?
Has somebody gone to jail for misgendering somebody in Canada? I can tell you right now that I know it's not true, because if it had happened, you would be telling me about it right now. That's how I know that it's not true. Like, I mean, like if somebody had gone to jail or was like had like a massive fine or whatever for misgendering somebody accidentally in Canada, I would know about it, because every single person would show up to my chat or my YouTube comment section and then spam about how it happened and I was wrong about everything. So I know this hasn't happened yet. The thing about C-16 is, and the New York thing, and people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Dumbfuckson and everybody, I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun of him, like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, all of these guys will throw these hypotheticals at you, but what they don't take into account is the fact that these things don't get you in trouble for accidentally misgendering somebody. If I see somebody on the street and I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And they're like, I'm not a dude, I'm a dudette. oh shit, I'm going to jail now. Like, that's not how that works. It's like if you have a boss and the boss is like, hey, and you said like, hey, I'd like to be called Jenny, blah, blah, blah. And the boss is like, hey, Butch, get over here. You're real burly and strong, being a fake woman and all, right? This is the kind of person that gets punished under this new legislation. Similarly in Canada, I think it mainly applies to tenants, or not tenants, building owners to their tenants, and then to employers to their employees. That it's this type of discrimination. Accidentally misgendering somebody doesn't get you fucked. It's like doing it willfully, maliciously, intentionally.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. What's your thoughts on the Count Dankula thing then?
For me personally, I mean, Count Dankula is a huge fucking idiot piece of shit. Fuck that guy. Firstly, secondly, well,
does it justify it? Does
no,
it
sure.
justify it?
A lot of Europeans lean way farther left than I think you would be comfortable with if you actually like studied what any European person thinks about anything. That's just like my guess. So like things like socialized healthcare and the amount of taxes they pay and their position on guns are going to be vastly different than most white Americans. That being said, I don't like. I think is it Scottish law that's fucking Count Dankula, or is it the United Kingdom law? I don't know how their jurisdiction.
I think it's Scottish.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so like for me personally, I don't like that. I disagree with the way that they do their hate speech laws. I think in the United States we would be allowed to do that. It would definitely be protected under First Amendment stuff. I'm pretty extreme when it comes to First Amendment stuff, so I'm going to fall more in that direction than I think most Europeans, Western Europeans would. So yeah, I mean, I disagree with it from that point of view. But yeah, so. But I mean, like,
that's like a indicator. Like, would that have happened in the past, like say 10, 20 years ago? Would something like that have?
Probably not. There's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened 10 or 20 years ago, though. I don't know what that's supposed to prove. Do you think that could be an example
of just how like these like the Holocaust denial laws are being kind of contorted? To like just
wait, I don't think he's getting in trouble for Holocaust denial, is he?
No, it's under the the hate speech.
Okay, what does that have to do with Holocaust denial? Why did we bring that up? Or did we miss it?
I mean, related. I don't know. Maybe it has nothing to do with Holocaust denial.
Sure. So I think there are hate speech laws that exist in Scotland that I would disagree with. But I mean, I'm guessing the majority of the population there agrees with them. Yeah, that's why they exist. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. I would have to see pull up Gallup data or something from Scotland to see if they disagree with the way that they do their hate speech laws. But I'm guessing most of them agree with the way it's set up. That's why that's the law there. And I mean, I can't tell another country how they should legislate their morality. I mean, that's not up for me to decide as an American. So,
all right,
yeah.
All right. So we're just gonna go with like, if there is some form of like something that we wouldn't agree with in terms of free speech, they would just say that's how the people want to believe it. That's how the people want it.
I mean, that's how in a democracy, I would imagine so generally, yeah. Unless there's like now, if this was like a totalitarian dictatorship or something, then obviously we would be having a different discussion, right? If you were to say, well, don't you think if the people had guns, it would be different? And it was like a dictatorship, well, yeah, of course. Then yeah, I definitely think it would be different. Yeah, of course, people would be fighting against their government. But I don't think that there are these mass revolts in Scotland against their hate speech laws that most people disagree with. I could be wrong on that. I fully admit it. I would have to see polling data. I'm just going by general. I guess I don't want to say common sense, but like what I would expect to happen if everybody there disagreed with it isn't happening. So,
okay, I mean that's fair. If the people want it, that's what the people want.
Sure.
That's why I kind of changed it to like white American culture.
Okay, sure. So if we want to go back to this thing of white American culture, and
are you just going to say like, why don't we just allow blacks or anybody that doesn't agree with American culture as we know it?
Well, like, so yeah, so well, this is the next thing I'm going to is like, do you think that like, do you think you have more in common? Like, I'm willing to bet that I could find a fuck ton of black people that share more culture with you in common in America than I could white people in a Scandinavian country, especially fucking Swedes. I'm willing to bet that if I were to put you up against like a random Swedish person, you would probably have more in common with like a decent black American than you would with that Swedish person. So like when you say like white American culture,
I'm sure they exist, but I think we can both assume those are outliers.
Well, like but not. It really depends though on. Like, I'm trying not to go back to the first point that I made, but like the problem is like everything you're saying is like so broad. So like when you say, for instance, white American culture, like
Well, I did the values that I listed earlier, just like small government.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay. So, I'm sorry to do this to you. We'll do this. So you say small government. What's next?
Like the more freedoms as an individual. And that's pretty much.
Can I get an example of some individual freedoms?
Okay, First, Second Amendment. That's pretty much it.
Okay, so white American culture means that you are for small government and for the First and Second Amendment? If
Yes.
black people are shooting each other all the time and they use guns more than anybody else, wouldn't that mean that black people support the Second Amendment more than white people?
I mean, then we can go into like talking about like, are they legal? Like, are they even legal? They even have respect for the Second Amendment?
Well, okay, so then it's not the second. It's respect for the First and Second Amendment.
No. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to get you. If you want to rephrase anything I've asked you, then feel free to rephrase it.
Okay.
That's fine.
Feel like you're
okay.
trying to...
Yeah. I'm not trying to like nail you on like you're misspeaking or something. Yeah.
I got you. So, what I'm met with here is just it's like why not just allow anybody that like shares these values and let them stay.
Well, I wouldn't even challenge you there. I would argue that these aren't even core American values or core white American values. Like when you say small government, look at places like California or look at places like New York. Like
I just what I want is just like pre-1965 America.
Okay.
So whatever that is.
Okay, so then let's dump. Okay, so we're going to dump all of this because the First and Second Amendment have been around even before 1965. So let's dump all of that then. Okay, so let's do pre-1965 America. So can you tell me what it was about pre-1965 America that you liked more than America today?
Well, upwards of 85% white. That's a big one.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I can't. Like we talked about this earlier. I can't tell you. I just.
Okay, what else besides pre-1965 America?
Let's see. The previous I listed earlier. I really like. That's the big sticklers for me.
So it's
and I'm sure
really
there's a lot of
just
other factors here that I'm not thinking of.
So it's really just about not liking colored people. That's really all. It's not pre-1960. It's really I just don't like colored people, and that's the thing.
I understand that there's always outliers. Like I met a bunch of like good colored people. Like I would call them my friends. My two best friends are colored, but it's just like they are outliers. I would say.
Okay, so let's just dump all of this. Okay, why
you like
not
write it down?
Yeah, I try to take notes so that I can keep track of the conversation. Okay, so why not just live around other white people and just not pay attention to colored people?
That's what I want.
So why not just do that?
What? Don't just all like everybody with my views just go up to like Montana?
No.
Or something?
Just like move into a white neighborhood and have all white friends and just do that instead of like trying to...
Okay, that's a good one, and I think I can go somewhere from here. Finally, okay. So as we know, the demographics, 1965, upwards of 85% white, like bordering on 90, I think. So from there, we're now 50 years later, and we're already down to 56%. I think that's the mean number. I think the actual number is like 61%. But that is an insane margin in just under 50 years.
Why?
Like, just imagine
Why
what another
is it
50 will do.
Yeah, white people.
Because that is a huge. Like in another 50 years, whites could be like 25% of the U.S. population.
Even if that
and
was
just, like,
true,
these not only do these people breed extremely like much faster than that of whites, but also they're importing here.
Well,
so there's like
okay. Hold on, we have so many memes. So, firstly, it's not that they breed quicker than whites, which they kind of do. The thing is that like white people stopped having kids, but Hispanics are doing it as well. This is like a very common phenomenon of every first world country. As soon as people become more industrialized, as soon as people's lives become more stable, they stop having kids. This is just an observed phenomenon in every country in the world.
Well, is there something that like blacks aren't getting that whites get? Like, are they being deprived of something?
Yeah, economic prosperity.
So many more kids.
Economic prosperity.
So whose fault is that on? Whose fault is their economic prosperity on?
It's a huge intersectional problem. What do you mean? I mean, it's a very you
I think
acknowledge
that's where we disconnect.
How do we?
We're letting them shake the responsibility of why they are where they are right now, and just letting them. We're giving them a free pass. You're giving them a free pass.
I'm not giving anybody a free pass. Okay, I just like to look at reality the way that it is and not live in a fantastical land. Okay.
Okay.
So
tell me your breakdown of this.
Sure. So you agree that Jim Crow laws existed, right?
Right.
Things like redlining, gentrification, all this stuff existed. So you agree that there were state-enforced things that had negative impacts on black people, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you think that
But
if
that
you're
was,
do you think
when
that
was the last?
do you think that if your parents were fucked in life, do you think that they're more likely to give birth to children that are fucked in life? This is a concept known as generational wealth. I think we see where we're walking with this, right? So there are people whose grandparents today lived under Jim Crow. How can you say that they don't feel the impact of that whatsoever?
Why would their grandchildren feel the impact of that? So like you're saying the grandparents, they came up in rougher times. They didn't get the same opportunities as whites back then. So that got passed on to their parents, and consequently their kids.
Yeah.
Their kids and their kids.
This is almost like a non-Mendelian inheritance or whatever, right?
The current generation, I would say, like the generation we're dealing with right now is probably the worst of all of them. Oh, 1 second.
I think his black roommate might have walked in.
Oh, shit.
Destiny, this is a little off topic, but do you think that a dog can engage in a social contract with a human?
I don't want to do the vegan
Oh,
meme.
God.
Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. I
So-
love dogs and puppies. They're so cute and cuddly, and I would never eat a puppy or hurt a puppy, okay? There you go.
Did the Ethnostate guy just give up there? Was that a defeat
Wait,
admission?
did he leave?
What
He said. I
happened?
thought he said his roommate came in.
No, that was a meme. No, someone just said his black roommate walked in, and we all laughed. That's what happened.
Okay. Did he dip out though? Oh, he's
He's
saying
still
that.
here.
Said he was going to be back.
Yeah.
I thought he said he was
Mike's
going to
still on.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
okay.
Well, in the interim, Destiny, what's your opinion on a vegan state?
What do you mean by it? A vegan
Yeah,
state?
that's- Veganistan, dude. What do
I
you
mean,
think
it
of
would probably have higher IQ, lower crime rate. I mean, it seems like make a good case for it. We could just like annex, to part of Canada or just secede or something like this.
I don't think that would be
I
very
think I-
successful, but succeeding
I
seems
think
like a
I'd
really
like-
hard thing to do.
I'd like to annex part of India though, just because it's better for crops, or just somewhere where like crops can easily grow, and then we can grow all the fruit we want.
Yeah, Canada would be pretty shit.
Yeah, like, Canada's nice, but it's cold. Maybe the Caribbean. I don't know.
Ecuador.
Ecuador? Thailand. There we go. We can annex Thailand.
The debate that we really need to get to happen in here sometime is Destiny versus Lebens. Destiny, are you aware of Lebens?
No, who's that?
Oh man, he's like probably the most far extreme of alt-right that you could like ever picture. Like this guy doesn't just believe
Is he?
in the Jewish conspiracy.
Is he all right?
He's definitely all right. He
Oh,
wrote,
he-
he wrote a
I'm not
treatise
all right.
on- We're talking about someone else, but
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
there it is.
he.
I haven't heard him
If-
say anything
if you're
about
back-
blacks.
If you're back, I'll let you return to talking to Destiny. But yeah, Lebens, like, he's not just alt-right. He's like such a far extreme. Like, he thinks not only that the world is run by Jews, but that there's a Jewish pedophile cabal that
All right.
sacrifices
Jews definitely
children
play
to
a huge
Moloch.
role in our media. Are you denying that?
Do you think? Well, wait. Before anything like that, I don't want to get baited into this debate right now. But you're not going to be as far as Lebens. Do you think that there's a pedophile Jew cabal running the world and sacrificing children to Moloch on Pedophile Island in a temple?
Maybe not all that. Maybe.
Knife,
Just solid maybe on that.
Think about
I'll let you go back to talking to Death.
all right. Hey, Destiny,
Yeah, what's up, buddy?
you should totally unban me from your server when we're done here.
I'll think about it.
Please.
I don't
Alright,
like.
moving
No,
on.
actually, no. Fuck, I don't want racist people on my fucking server. What the
What?
fuck?
No, Destiny, come on, dude.
What?
I enjoy... Dude, you know how much time I spend in here? All these people disagree with me. I enjoy talking to, like... outsiders.
Like, I'm being friendly with you in a conversation, but I think that it would be morally permissible for, like, people of color to murder people like you in society. Like, I think that your moral views are actually fucking atrocious.
Ooh,
like, they're
I don't
really
advocate
abhorrent.
genocide. I don't advocate
You do advocate genocide.
outright
You already
killing
admitted to it. You already admitted to it. You said that you would advocate state
only
sanction.
if they are aggress on us first.
No.
Aggressing on us first.
You would aggress on them first by forcibly deporting them from the country. That's what you
only
say.
if
Those
they
are your
aggress on
political
us
views.
second.
Yeah. So that's aggressing second is not aggressing. So I think that a colored person, as you would call them, has a morally sound argument to literally kill somebody like you because of the political views that you advocate for. So fuck no, I don't want you on my fucking Discord server. What the fuck?
Destiny, come on, dude. I thought what we had was special.
No. There's another racist to debate, my dude.
Racist. Ugh. Come on, I could be proven wrong, Destiny. I just need a bunch of big brains in a collective server.
You don't want to be proven wrong, though. You even admitted that you engage in motivated reasoning. You just don't like colored people for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, I was telling we were talking about why, and like my dad came in and I like
every single why that we had, you fell away from, and you admitted eventually.
No. Okay, all right. Where we cut off? I remember where we cut off. So let me finish this right here. So the biggest reason, like, I value those sayings. I value small government, a bunch of these, like, free speech, Second Amendment, and a bunch of other things I'm probably forgetting right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I value those, and, like, overwhelmingly, these colored people vote overwhelmingly against these things.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be against my best interest to allow them to stay here. And also, where we were just at, we were talking about how they are, like, taking over. Like, their demographics went up by, like, 30% in under 50 years, right? So
Sure.
I'm sure we can assume in another 50 years it's going to be even more than that. We're probably going to be sitting at like 30, 20.
Well, no, their birth rates will
whites.
probably slope off the same way that white people's birth rates have sloped off. It's hard.
Why? Like, we're not seeing that now. Why could we assume that later?
Birth rates.
And even then, there's like all these people immigrating here. Especially if we get like a Democrat president next time around, we're definitely going to have a lot more.
Okay, so I only know the really large like it's like the like population theory. So that's what I'm basing this on. So I don't have empirical data coming into this, but I just did a really quick Google search, and I'm pretty sure that my theory, not my theory, but the theories that I understand are probably true. And we can dig through empirical data on this if you want, but Hispanic populations in the United States have slowed their growth. This is happening. I don't know why you would say it's not happening. So their population growth was 3.7% 10 years ago. It's 2% now. It's stagnated over the past like 4 or 5 years, but it'll probably continue.
So whites are the baseline in that, and Hispanics are still 2%.
Yeah, they're still higher than white people, sure. Because a lot of your ability to make children or whatnot will be predicated on your wealth. The wealthier somebody is, the less likely they are to make a lot of kids.
Asians, I'm sure Asians are, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure, I'm not pretty sure. I would bet that Asians are pretty high, like higher than the average white in terms of like financial stability, right? So why are they higher than everybody else?
It could be because a lot of Asians are immigrating here to study at universities and whatnot, right? We got a lot of people coming in from China and whatnot. Also, we do a fuck ton of business with the country as well. So
so the breeding inside the country might slow down, but the immigration, if not combated, will never stop.
So this isn't careful. Hold on, stop. This is an empirical number that I am familiar with, and I can find it for you right now if you want. But the amount of Mexicans that immigrate to the United States has actually fallen over the past decade. I know that's true for a fact. I can find
say that again.
The amount of Mexican immigrants to the United States has decreased over the past like decade, like for the first time.
Decrease.
Yeah.
So there's less coming in now than there.
No.
was
There's
10
more
years
going. I'm sorry. There's more going out than coming in. That trend was reversed like a decade. Nah, maybe not a decade ago, but it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Mexican immigrants.
Yeah. I need to look at the specific figures so that I'm not misquoting this.
All right, hey, I'm gonna just take your word for it.
Sure.
But
here's this real quick. Like, you've got a little graph here where you can see it sloping off, and then I'm pretty sure after 2014, the number of people from Mexico like decreased, and you can see it hard sloping here in that graph. If you scroll down a little bit, I'll shoot you like here's the picture from that article, and then we can go and look it up. Like we can look at more specific figures. I'm like 99% sure this is true. I remember looking at this up for my Fuentes debate. But sorry, go ahead.
What is this showing me? This graph right here?
A number of Mexican immigrants in the United States. Mexican immigrant population in the United States. So you can see that it was like really high.
Oh,
and
it's
grew,
it's
and then
leveled
slowed back.
off, huh?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure. Fuck, I need to go dig up the.
Okay,
the
even
information.
even if
Uh-huh.
that's not really the contingency point of my argument here, it's just because there's still a whole bunch of other races that like coloreds that are still going to be a problem. Even if Mexicans completely like all Mexican immigration stops and they stop breeding at like more than 2.0, right? Even if all that stops, there's still all these other races that are going to be contributing to the problem. And that problem being is it's going to start impeding on my rights that I value as an American citizen.
Okay.
The
problem is that like the issues that you're talking about, white people aren't even united on them. Like there are plenty of white people.
Well, they
that
are
Democrats.
significantly higher margins that have coloreds.
Sure, they are. There are, sure, but that can be explained by other factors as well. Like not just
Why?
because they're colored. Well, because if you're in a position of power, you're more likely to vote to maintain that position of power, even if it fucks everyone else around you.
Position of power. How does smaller government, freedom of speech, and firearm ownership like contribute to your power and your position?
Firearm ownership and freedom of speech are two separate things, but we can look at what was the first thing you said? Something related to government taxes or smaller government. So smaller government, sure. So if you're a very wealthy person in the United States, smaller government will disproportionately benefit you over somebody else. If we assume that larger government larger government means more redistributive wealth programs or more funding for education or something like that, if you're a really wealthy person, you don't need those things. So why would you want to pay into a system if you're selfish?
We can see just based off that, like Indian, like the street shit Indians, they are what is it? They have higher income than that of whites on average. It's like wouldn't they vote for bigger government as well? Overwhelming. It's like wouldn't they be following this trend if that's actually the case?
I'm not sure what Indian voter patterns are like in the United States, but it's also possible that they vote. It's also possible that they vote for Democrats more than Republicans because so many Republicans are like outright fucking racist. That probably hurts your ability to recruit people as well.
Racist? Who's racist?
Trump, the way that he talks and the way that a lot of the Republican legislation looks. So if you talk about things like voter ID, are pretty racist things generally.
Yeah. Ooh, voter ID, right? Come on, voter ID is racist. How is it racist?
Oh,
dude?
You really don't want to step into this. This is like
I want to be proven wrong here. Like, how is that racist? That doesn't make that's like. Please give me your input on that.
Do you really?
I really do, Destiny.
Okay. So in North Carolina, the state legislature requested from voting booths the voter breakdown information by race. And what they enacted afterwards in order to combat voter fraud was a series of rules that basically, as the lower courts ruled, surgically targeted black people. So here are an example of some things that the North Carolina state legislature did in order to make it so that less people would vote illegally. One, they made it so that the is it absentee voting, the pre-voting that you can do like 2 weeks before the election? They took that time from 2 weeks and they cut it to 1 week, okay? More black people voted earlier than white people in those. So they cut off how early you could vote, how early you could mail in your ballot before then. That was one thing they did. Second thing is they went through all of the different types of IDs that they had, and all of the most commonly used IDs, whether they were state-issued or not, expired or not, that were used by black people, were then made illegal to use at voting booths. That was the second thing they did. The third thing they did is voting booths that were predominantly used by black people were oftentimes closed down so that they would have to travel farther to get to other voting booths. When the courts reviewed all of the things that the legislature had done, they pretty much had ruled that, and quoting them, that these regulations surgically targeted black people to prevent them from voting. And there was no compelling evidence whatsoever that any of those restrictions would have made it so that less people could illegally vote. That problem hadn't even been demonstrated.
Okay. So the thing where they closed down voting centers that were like closer to black communities, that is something that I could probably be convinced is could be racist, right? Like if we were just like cherry picking voting centers nearby black neighborhoods or something. That okay, I could see for that. But the voter ID, that is just ridiculous. Like something that just ensures that you're an American citizen and that you have the right to vote is racist.
Wait. That we're an American citizen, that's already done at voting booths. They already get all the information from your address and everything. When you go, have you voted before?
Yeah, that was like 2016,
Okay, so when you go to the voting place, they ask you your name, they check off your name and your address, right? And then you go in and vote. And in order to be on that list, you already have to be an American citizen. You don't need to show them an ID for that.
So what's the if they are already confirmed to be American? Is the argument that like blacks can't afford IDs?
Well, that could be an argument, but the actual argument is voting is your constitutional God-given right, and the most important, well, God-given if you're religious, is the most important right that you have as a citizen of the United States. And if you want to put any roadblock in between somebody and a voting booth, you have to have a really fucking good reason to do it. And I don't think that reason has ever been demonstrated by Republicans in the United States. And every time they try to implement it, it seems like the goal, the way they implement it, is always just to try to get less black people to vote.
Did you hear the number? Like in 2016, there was over like 3 million illegal immigrants.
I did hear that number. That number was quoted by our fucking idiotic president of the United States. He created like a little. What was that? The Organization for fucking Illegal Immigrant Crimes or some shit. And I think he actually disbanded it some months ago because they didn't find anything. It was a totally unsubstantiated claim that Trump made on fucking Twitter that has never been proven, never verified, never amounted to anything in the entire United States.
I love you, Destiny.
Thanks, buddy.
Weren't the way they were doing it is they were like utilizing IDs from like dead people or something? Like if it could be done, it probably was done.
So here's
wait.
Okay, so like here's something. This is like I don't like to say common sense, okay? But like let's appeal to a little bit of critical thinking, okay? Let me ask you a question. You're going to answer yes to this. If there was massive voter fraud in the United States, wouldn't this be literally one of the most important political news stories in probably the history of government civilization? Like, do you agree with that? Like if 3 million people voted illegally.
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious that our media has a bias politically.
Okay,
right?
hold on, wait. Can you just answer this question? If 3 million people illegally voted, wouldn't this be one of the largest stories of all the government? You don't think this would be one of the most...
Absolutely not. California is trying to make it right now where all you need is a driver's license to drive, and they give driver's license to illegal immigrants.
No.
So like something like that. If that was...
No.
What are you saying, Destiny?
You are wrong. So what California did... You don't need to look it up. I'm very familiar with it. What California did was California made it so that you didn't have to register separately to vote. They can automatically do it via your driver's license. Now, California does provide driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. However, they have a process by which when they review your driver's license to submit you to the automated voting registry or whatever, they confirm that you are a citizen before they do that. They do not automatically enroll illegal immigrants to vote. You can look this up if you want, but the announcement from the state is going to be exactly what I just told you.
Gosh dang it. All right.
So again, like, if this was something that was really happening, this would be the largest story
I still
of
disagree
all.
with that.
That's great that you do, but you're doing it on. Are you religious? Like, you're making a faith-based argument to me. I can't help you if that's what you want to do.
No. Not religious, but it's like it's obvious. Like, do you not acknowledge that there's like our media has a political bias, right?
Different sects of the media have certain political biases. Yeah, sure.
Okay, who are the ones that talked about that 3 million illegal immigrant number?
Nobody should have. It was incredibly irresponsible, and it's totally unsubstantiated. I'm sure Fox News probably fucking reported on it. Fox News, 3 million illegal, and then all the shit media like the Daily Caller and Breitbart probably, but I don't consider them part of the actual media. They just blog shit spam. Oh, here's that story for Trump dismantling the voter fraud commission. Because they could never find any evidence of the voter fraud that he claimed on Twitter.
Okay.
Yikes. Even Fox News says that the president had alleged without evidence that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally in the 2016 election. Awkward.
Do you consider investors.com any sort of like, you give it any kind of credibility?
Shoot me the article and we can read it. Just put it in the chat or whatever. We'll click it and read it.
All right. It's not touting the 3 million number, but it's acknowledging that there was
okay, Investors Business Daily. Trump is right. Millions of illegals probably did vote in 2016. Hold on. Fucking ad. No, thanks. Not surprisingly, the
You don't have
media...
an ad blocker.
No, sometimes I do. Not surprisingly, the media takes seriously and support Jill Stein's and Hillary Clinton's excellent vote recount adventure, despite there being no indication a recount is needed. Heck, even President Obama agrees Donald Trump won, period, but when Trump dares to suggest in a Sunday tweet that illegal aliens voted in the election, the media responds with massive denial. So right off the bat, I don't think that these are necessarily the same. If you demand a recount, you're not demanding a recount because you think that people illegally voted. You're just demanding a recount if the margins are close enough that you think a recount might change things, if somebody made an error or whatever. So right off the bat, we're starting pretty rough because it's a pretty bad false equivalence, but that's okay. Continuing on from there. In addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally, Trump tweeted in the to the barely concealed contempt of many in the media. Typical was the utterly dismissive headline in The Nation, the flagship publication of the progressive movement. The president-elect is an internet troll. The Washington Post, the fixed blog site, did a little better. Donald Trump seems there are many more, too many out here. Many follow the same theme. Trump foolishly followed the faulty analysis of Greg Phillips, the true vote, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that Greg Phillips of True the Vote, that guy tweeted that he had evidence that millions of people voted illegally, and he said he would release it, and then he disappeared from Twitter, and he never did. Interesting guy. I'm familiar with that name, but okay. Phillips estimated that illegals cast 3 million votes in the 2016 election. He's wrong, say the media. Heck, even the liberal fact-checking site factcheck.org says so. It's funny that every single fact-checking site seems to have a liberal bias. But moving on from that. But in fact, it's almost certain that illegals did vote in significant numbers. Whether it was 3 million or not is another question. While states control the voter registration process, some states are so notoriously slipshod in their controls that it would be shocking if many illegals didn't vote. Remember, a lowball estimate says 11 to 12 million. What's disappointing is instead of taking it seriously, but there is evidence to back Trump's claim. A 2014 study in the online Electoral Studies Journal shows that in 2008 and 2010 elections, illegal immigrants' votes were in fact quite high. All right, let's see. Do non-citizens vote in U.S. elections? First, use of representative sample to measure non-citizen voting in the USA. Some non-citizens cast votes in U.S. elections despite legal bans. Non-citizens favor Democratic candidates. Non-citizens vote likely changed 2008 outcomes, including electoral college votes. In spite of substantial public controversy, very little reliable data exists concerning the frequency with which non-citizen immigrants participate in the United States elections. Although such participation is a violation of election law in most parts of the United States, enforcement depends principally on disclosure of citizen status at the time of voter. The study examines participation rates by non-citizens using a nationally representative sample that includes non-citizen immigrants. We found that some non-citizens participate in U.S. elections and that this participation has been large enough to change meaningful election outcomes, including electoral college votes and congressional elections. Non-citizen votes likely gave Senate Democrats the pivotal 60th vote needed to overcome filibusters. This is interesting. I've never heard of this study before. I'll look more into this. So going back to the main article, we find that some non-citizen participate. Oh, he's quoting the article here. More specifically, right? Quoting that thing straight. The authors say that illegals may have cast as many as 2.8 million illegal votes in 2008 and 2010. That's a lot of votes, blah, blah, blah. Critics note that a Harvard team in 2015 had responded to the study, calling it biased, but that report included this gem. Further, the likely percent of non-citizen voters in recent U.S. elections is 0. Really? That's simply preposterous. Frankly, okay, so this is conjecture. What's appalling, as we said, is it's not media skepticism, but it's denial. When the far left began insinuating that the Russians had hacked the election, the media... Okay, this is retarded. And yes, Trump is right. Illegals may vote. It may in part explain why Hillary now has nearly 2 million lead vote and blah, blah, blah. Rasmussen reports. Skepticism, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'm curious to see the Harvard response to this study. The perils of cherry-picking low-frequency events in large sample surveys. The advent of large sample surveys, such as the Cooperative Congressional Election Study, I've never heard this study sourced before. So do you care if I read the Harvard response to it, or do you want to move on to something different?
You can go ahead if you want.
Okay. The advent of large sample surveys, such as the Cooperative Congressional Election Study, has opened the possibility of measuring very low-frequency events, characteristics, and behaviors in the population. This is certainly a worthy objective, but researchers must use caution when studying low-probability events and behaviors, such as non-citizenship rates and voting. Even very low-level measurement error can lead to classification and prediction errors and incorrect inferences and analyses. This paper documents how low-level measurement errors for survey questions generally agreed to be highly reliable can lead to large prediction errors in large sample surveys, such as the CCES. The example for this analysis is Richmond, Chadha, and Ernest, which presents a biased estimate at the rate of which non-citizens voted in recent elections. The results we show are completely accounted for by very low-frequency measurement error. Further, the likely percent of non-citizen voters in recent U.S. elections is 0. Okay, so... Well, I'll just read this. I'll read this a little slower, sorry. We begin with an example. Suppose a survey question is asked of 20,000 respondents, and that, of these persons, 19,500 has a given characteristic. For example, they are citizens, and 500 do not. Suppose that 99.9% of the time, the survey question identifies correctly whether people have a given characteristic, and 0.1% of the time, respondents who have a given characteristic incorrectly state that they do not have that characteristic. That is, they check the wrong box by mistake. That means 99.9% of the time, the question correctly classifies an individual as having a characteristic, such as being a citizen of the United States, and 0.1% of the time, it classifies someone as not having a characteristic when in fact they do. This rate of misclassification or measurement error is extremely low and would be tolerated by any survey researcher. It implies, however, that one expects 19 people out of 20,000 to be incorrectly classified as not having a given characteristic when in fact they do. Normally, this is not a problem. In the typical survey of 1,000 to 2,000 persons, such a low-level measurement error would have no detectable effect on the sample. Even in very large sample surveys, survey practitioners would expect a very low level of measurement error, which would have effects that wash out between two categories. The non-citizen voting example highlights a potential pitfall with very large databases in the study of low-frequency categories. Continuing with the example of citizenship and voting, the problem is that the citizen group is very large compared to the non-citizen group of the survey. So even if the classification is extremely reliable, a small classification error rate will cause the bigger category to influence analysis of the low frequency category in substantial ways. Misclassification of 0.1% of 19,500 respondents leads us to expect that 19 respondents who are citizens will be classified as non-citizens, and one non-citizen will be classified as a citizen. The one non-citizen classified as a citizen will have trivial effects on any analyses of the overall pool of people categorized as citizens, as that individual will be 1 in 19,481 respondents. However, the 19 citizens incorrectly classified as non-citizens can have significant effects on the analyses, as they are 3.7% of respondents who said they are non-citizens. Such misclassifications can explain completely the observed low rate of a behavior, such as voting, among a relatively rare or low-frequency group, such as non-citizens. Does any of this make sense so far? I can give an example for why this might be a problem. Do you want me to give an example?
You're pretty much telling me how like studies can be misconstrued, right?
Well, not necessarily studies.
Did it say the study engaged in those, or is it saying that's just how?
Well, this is what the study did. It sounds like they took a sample size of people and they polled them. They didn't actually discover voting fraud. What they did was they polled people and they extrapolated based on what they polled. Do you understand how using these types of measurements, though? Because the problem was the disproportionate groups and then the low-frequency event, that these two things coming together might make this type of statistical inferencing not a good idea. Do you understand why? Because I can give a really good example of this.
Give me a really good example.
Okay. Do you have like a piece of paper or like a calculator or something? Or it won't be hard, okay? I promise, okay?
I got a calculator right here.
Okay, let's say that we have 10,000 people in one category, okay? And then we have 10 people in another category, all right?
All right.
Okay, let's say that we're trying to find out, let's say that we have a rule for a restaurant, okay? You're allowed in this restaurant if you own nice clothes, okay? And if you don't own nice clothes, you're not allowed in this restaurant, okay? You following me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that 10,000 people have the nice clothes to go to the restaurant, and let's say 10 people don't. Let's say that you want to find out. Let's say somebody's made this accusation, okay? Let's say that they've said, hey, I think that there's a lot of people with ugly clothes that are going into this restaurant, okay? We need to do a study and figure out if this is happening. So somebody says, okay, well, we're going to do a large poll of 10,010 people, and we're going to find out what's really going on here. Now, let's say that as part of polling, you expect there to be some level of error. Let's say that we say that there is a 0.1% error, okay, in our polling. So this means that of those 10,000 people, let's say that they act 0.1% of them, 0.1%, identifies people having bad clothes. Okay? You following me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So that means that of those 10,000 people, we would expect 10 of them to identify with the other group. Now, let's say that of the 10 people, nobody misidentifies because it's such a small sample and we can't divide it by 0.1% or whatever, right? Well, this would mean that then when we ask the question, okay, how many of you go to the nice restaurant and eat, that all of those 10,000, or we would expect most of them, like 99% of them, would say, oh, yes, we do. So let's say that all of them vote yes. Well, if that's true, those 10 people that misidentified are now part of that other 10 group, which makes 20. Those 10 people would say yes. Well, now all of a sudden it looks like that original 10 group, it looks like 50% of people with shitty clothes are going to the restaurant because of our polling error. Did that make sense? Or did I lose you in the numbers there?
I got you.
Yeah, so that's the problem is that
the
there are...
fault of the study is that, like, the people, the the people who weren't illegal immigrants that they accidentally clicked or marked the box that they were illegal, and that completely messed up the study, right? That's like,
that's the assertion made by the Harvard people. Now, I can't tell you 100% that actually happened, but that's the assertion made by the Harvard study, is that they used an inappropriate data inferencing thing on their study. So I guess like if they wanted to verify it, they could go back and verify the citizenship of everybody that checked a box, or something like that would be a way to combat that. But that's the claim that's being made. That seems like a reasonable claim, knowing a little bit about numbers and math. It seems like not that much, but it seems like a reasonable claim to make, that you would expect some very low percentage of people to misidentify because they checked the wrong box or something retarded, right? But even 0.1% of a huge group is going to massively throw off the numbers of a much, much smaller group, right?
Okay.
So I'm sorry. Okay, so let me back up a lot, because we just went off on a huge tangent. The reason why I bring that up is because this entire article of non-citizens voting that you linked me, that entire article is just based on this one poll that didn't even demonstrate any illegal voting actually happened. It was just a poll that they did, and then they extrapolated that to the entire country and said, look, this is probably happening. We didn't actually even find any illegal voter fraud going on. That entire article is just based on this one poll, and I think, based on what I read from the Harvard study, you can call into question their methods. Right, sorry. Okay,
the Harvard, they're just speculating that they used a poll. Like, where on this, I'm looking at this in the Science Direct, where the article is, and where does it say that they used a poll? Or is that just speculation by Harvard?
Well, I feel like the guys at Harvard would know what types. They're responding specifically to the methodology used in this study.
Okay. Okay. All right. What was I using that for?
Wait. You go to college, right? Or were you lying to me?
I do.
Do you have access to this study? I sent you a DM on Discord. Can you access? I don't go to uni or anything, or college, so I don't have. I'm sure that somebody in my chat or whatever, somebody should have access to the. And then I'm sure we could just look at the.
1 second. What is Open Athens?
What is what?
It says it wants me to sign in via my institution. I don't know. I'm not gonna mess with it. Let's just assume the study's wrong, then, I guess.
Sure.
So where was my point? I think the point I was making is that I don't want
Well, we're talking about illegal immigrants voting, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, voting, and you're like said that's not really a problem. Okay. So the point, and we also talked about how like even though the Hispanic population's like steadying out, like starting to whatever, Okay, so that's still a problem because even if that's the case, there are still other colors that are breeding. Mexicans are still breeding at a 2.0%, and
yeah, sure. So
there will still be people immigrating here, and as time goes on, there will be less and less whites and more coloreds that will be willing and more than willing to vote out our rights. And we, from there.
Wait, so let's say that that's even true. Why do we care if there are more brown people in the United States?
I just told you, because these people do not share the same interests as me. And I like the rights that I have obtained now, even though they're being impeded on a wee bit.
But there are a lot of white people that don't share the same interests as you.
Right, but white people are overwhelmingly the white people are the only reason we still have these things right now at this very moment.
I mean, some white people, but a lot of white people vote Democrat too. I mean...
No, a lot less. I think the margin's is like 67%. It's like 67%. Never mind. Forget that. Anyway, there's just a whole lot. Otherwise, if it because coloreds vote overwhelmingly like margins upwards of 70% for like bigger government and less of these like freedom of speech, less guns, whatnot, gun control, all this good stuff, right? So without these whites that were like holding on to these things, it would be absolutely useless. Not useless, they'd be gone.
I guess we can go over individual policy positions, I guess, if we want, but
there's really no denying, because even if it's not within the next 20 years, it'll be in the next 40, and then I'll be robbing my children or their children or whatever children down the line of these things that I get to enjoy myself it'll be my fault for not acting
So
upon
what
it.
policies? I guess what policies is it that you think are like fucking your children over? Because like if you want to think about policies that are ruining like the lives of our children, like I would look to our earlier generations of white people that were responsible for that. Like what are some examples of? Like how about like education in the United States is fucked. It's so fucking hard right now. Holy shit, it's so fucked. And that sure as hell you can't blame it on black people or Hispanic people or other colored people. Like,
how would you fix the education?
there needs to be like an entire overhaul. Like
what did we do to mess it up? What did white people do to mess it up?
Well, I mean, like the entire institution of education. Most of our institutions that exist today are kind of attributed to white people. No, white people have been running the country at least until 1965, according to you, right?
Until that's just when the Immigration Act 1965 was passed.
Sure. So whatever large system we have in the United States today, I think I can fairly attribute to white people. No.
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the education system that exists today in the United States is falling behind other countries like pretty vastly. It's not good compared to where it used to be.
Why is this? Do you remember what policy it was that's like made our schools so bad?
I think so I have to speculate a little bit based on the very little I've read. But one thing that it seems like America does is America is very unwilling to critically engage with some of its infrastructure and like massively change it up. So for instance, you can use prisons or education here, and then you can look to places like Scandinavia. So places like Norway have dramatically changed their approach to education, and it seems to be pretty successful, or dramatically changed their approach to like corrections, and it seems to be really successful. America never seems to be willing to do that. Like we funnel so much fucking money and shit into education systems, and everything is so fucked, but it seems like we don't really do much there.
I don't think either of us are, like, nobody, myself or anybody I know, would be against fixing education.
Oh, definitely. Look how many conservatives are so fucking against doing.
So, like, the argument you're making is like, so white people did this, so that's an argument against, like, why I should want a country of white people.
Well, no, I'm just saying that like this idea that like white people have done things that are so beneficial to everybody in the whole country for a long time, like you're being used, like you're the tool of like the super ultra rich wealthy person that like wants you to believe that he's looking out for every other white person, but that's not true. Like I think the class divides in wealth in the United States speak way more to how people look out for themselves than fucking white people, and you end up being a useful idiot for somebody like the Rockefellers or the Zuckerbergs or something, like people that want to pass legislation so that their massive multi-billion-dollar companies like Amazon don't have to pay any taxes while convincing you.
How am I, like, what am I advocating for that benefits them?
Smaller government, less taxes, less redistributed programs.
Do you think we should tax them more?
I think that
do you think we need more taxes, or do you think we should just re-allot where our taxes are going now?
So, based on what I have seen, and I could be wrong, if you've got contrary data, feel free to show it to me, it seems to me that income inequality, as much as I hate to say this because my inner capitalist doesn't agree with this, but empirically, it seems like income inequality is predictive of a lot of social ills. So it seems like taxing wealthier people a little bit harder, which there are a decent number of really wealthy people that agree with this. People like Warren Buffett have said this. I think people like Bill Gates have said this, that taxing people that are wealthy a bit harder and redistributing that or using it in ways to improve conditions for lower class people would probably be beneficial to everybody in the country. So yes, I would agree overall in increasing the amount of taxes collected by the government. Do you disagree with that, or what part of that do you disagree with?
Oh no, I'm looking up this thing here. So firstly, I would like to talk about so like how our taxes
and real
are
quick,
allotted.
real quick, because people a bunch of people actually dug up that poll. That data that was collected, the data used for this paper is from the 2008 and 2010 Cooperative Congressional Election Study based on the files released by Stephen Anslow. The 2008-2010 Cooperative Congressional Election Studies were conducted by YouGov/Pollmetrics of Palo Alto, CA as an internet-based survey using a sample selected to mirror the demographic characteristics of the U.S. So it was an internet survey that they did for for that polling stuff. That was just from the back thing. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Where was I?
We were talking about taxes and whatnot.
Okay. So, like, do you think there's a problem with the way, like, do you think there's too much money going into taxes, or are you of do you subscribe to the idea that we're putting too much money into military and not enough into welfare?
It's really hard for me to say. I think that it seems like we need to dramatically restructure some systems in the United States, like education would be an example system, healthcare is an example system, and it seems like we probably need to collect more revenue to do this. I could be wrong on that, though. I'm not entirely sure. It's really hard to say because like we can't even agree on what government should do in order to have it. Like we kind of have to have an agreement on that before we can agree on do we need more tax receipts or not. But I think that Americans are taxed pretty low compared to the rest of the world, comparatively speaking. What?
There's all right. I'm trying to look it up now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's right. So what I was going to say is that Walmart in 2015 got taxed 55%.
That
right?
No way. What? No way.
I'm looking up right now. I don't think it's right. We're looking at numbers closer to like 45%.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Let me.
So United Health is at the top, and that's like 43%. Home Depot's second at 37%, I guess is what that is. It's like these margins are insane. These are billions of dollars. Should we be taxing these people more? Should we be taking 55%? I'm getting this off Bloomberg.com. I don't know if you trust that or not.
No, yeah, Bloomberg is fine. Oh fuck. I would have to dig into these numbers. So this is something that I would caution you with, okay? And it sounds condescending to say this, but Republicans, when they talk about taxes, always fucking lie because most people don't know how taxes work. If somebody says that they're taxed at oh man, I would have to dig into this to get the exact things because so much of the problem is that like so many of the tax numbers are misleading because you've got the posted rates, but then you have the effective rate that you actually pay. For instance, do you know how our tax bracket system works in the United States? Let's say that you earn $100,000 and that puts you in like a 30% tax bracket. Do you know how much income tax you pay on that $100,000?
How much?
Assuming there's no deductions or anything? If you're in a 30% bracket?
Oh, 30. Okay, 30,000.
Okay. It's totally wrong. So this is what I mean when I say the
what?
taxes...
30% 100,000?
Yeah. So the problem is we tax the next dollar in our progressive tax system. So if you're in a 30% tax bracket at $100,000, let's say that up to $70,000, it's a 20% bracket. What that actually means is on all the income that you earn up to $70,000, you only pay 20% of that $70,000. The only income that you pay 30% on is from $70,000 to $100,000. That's the only income that you pay 30% on. This is a big problem when Republicans will say things like America has the highest corporate tax rate in the world, et cetera, like stuff like this, is that people only talk about the posted rates. People will talk about like the posted tax rates and act like that's what people pay in taxes. But one, even the posted rates, people calculate incorrectly. But two, nobody pays the posted rate. There are tons of deductions and carry forwards and interest. And there's like a million different ways. This is why the tax companies and all the accountants in the United States make so much money, is because these systems are insanely fucking complicated. So I would be very cautious if somebody says like the posted rate is 45%, so they paid this much in taxes, So like, yeah, so I'm not sure, like for instance, like Amazon, for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure, didn't Amazon pay nothing in taxes last year?
They have no earnings.
Yeah, so because Amazon had no earnings
high
last year,
rates and low.
I don't think Amazon had to pay anything in income in taxes last year. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump has a huge real estate loss that he carries forward year after year after year that he's able to deduct, because I think for real estate losses you can carry that forward and put it against real estate income. I would have to look up exactly. But he can carry forward that loss year after year after year to not pay any income tax. I'm just saying that income tax in the United States are really, really, really fucking confusing and very, very complicated. So be careful when somebody gives you like a simple number and says like, well, this is the rate, Yeah, there's a difference between the effective rate versus the marginal rate or the posted rate or whatever. Sorry. We were talking about whether or not they should be taxed more. Oh, yeah. So basically, like, I think that before we can really have that conversation, you have to have a conversation on, like, what should the function of government be and what should they do before we could really get into, like, should some people be taxed more than other people, or should you tax the wealthier people more, I guess. Sorry. Yeah, that was kind of a long roundabout.
Oh, okay. So what do you think the government should do? Actually, let's try to wrap this up a little bit. So where were we at in the?
Before you wrap up, I'm gonna pipe in for a sec. If you look at the chat, you'll notice that mystic Jewish symbols and stuff are starting to appear.
Mystic Jewish symbol. That's the fucking Black Sun, dude.
I don't even know what I'm looking at. What I do know is that Lebens has re-entered the server.
Oh
So,
shit!
Where's he at, dude? Lebens.
sorry to interrupt, but Destiny, if you want to debate like the epitome of alt-right, if you want to talk to a guy who truly believes there's like an international pedophile Jewish cabal running the world, this is definitely your man.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like
Right.
flat earthers would be more fun than that, but sorry. Go ahead.
Jews. All right, never mind. Okay, anyways. Where are we at? Okay, ethnic. Oh yeah, so like, there's no denying that if we let things go the way they are, even if like all these populations start steadying out, there's going to be white people become less and less of a demographic population in the U.S. Right, and with that comes less rights and values that I believe and enjoy.
Yeah, I guess I don't even know
So,
what
like,
those
it's not
specific
in my
values.
best
I don't know what those
interest. I
specific
told you.
values are.
Okay, small
Good
government.
evening, gentlemen. Howdy ho.
Lebens.
He's back.
For your information, gentlemen, this discussion/debate, whatever you wish to call it in the marketplace of ideas, blood sports of sorts, will be recorded and uploaded.
Ooh. Yeah.
Hey, Lebens.
Okay,
Jesus.
sir, I just want to say here, I'm gonna just temporarily give Destiny mod power. So if you want to mute and not interact with Lebens, that's totally fine because he can get a little crazy. But if you do want to talk to him, that is him with that crazy voice there.
Gotcha. Okay, I don't mute people, but so what? Okay. All right, Ethnostate. What were you saying, buddy?
So yeah.
Oh yeah.
there's
Wait.
this
So what are some of these? I'm curious. We can go. I don't want to
Okay,
like draw your
small
attention. I feel like-
Small government.
Okay. So like, wait.
firearm
So when you say
no
small government,
restrictions.
what do you mean by that?
Okay, less taxes, less welfare. Actually,
Okay.
no.
Wait. Let's talk. Okay. Get rid of taxes. I want programs and policies that you think exist that shouldn't exist right now. Like when you say smaller government, you're implying that some part of the government is too large or shouldn't exist. What parts are that government? I don't want to talk about income or revenue. Like what parts of government do you think need to go?
I mean, wouldn't wanting lower
How
taxes be a part of that?
How about we start with the part of government that has the blood of millions of your brother's sons in their hands through proxy resource wars?
Wait, the part of the government that has the blood of your brother's million
Shut
sons?
down, yes, of the world, the 1 trillion
Your mic keeps cutting out.
fund.
I think
Yeah, you're lagging out,
Yeah,
Levins.
I think the government is like using the blood of a million people to clog your internet tubes, dude. Okay, wait. Okay, American Ethnostate. So, what parts of the government do you think are like that need to go or whatever? Like what parts?
So, like, why would saying lower taxes be not a part of?
Well, because when you say lower taxes, taxes are just a means to an end, which is some function of government. You don't just want.
Also a means
Okay.
Yeah. So, like,
so
you want to
welfare
lower
completely gone. I want.
Wait. So you want welfare completely gone, even for poor white people?
Yep.
What about?
All right. So like the me. All right. So I'm kind of conflicted on this because like if I had my ethnostate, I would be very different. But if we're talking right now, yeah, no welfare, no, not for anybody. Absolutely not. I thought I'm kind of surprised that you're shocked by that, being as how you're this super capitalist, right?
Well, I'm not shocked by
do you
it.
Support
Well, it's because I'm not fucking delusional.
delusional. What do you think you need welfare for? Who needs welfare?
People that need welfare. Yeah, like if you've got
Like
citizens,
who's paying for this in a super capitalistic society?
wealthier, better off people are.
Wealthier, better. So
suckling on the teat of the government is a good thing because it gets leftists' votes.
Suckling on the teat of the government, providing milk by the government is positive because if more citizens in your country are successful, the country as a whole.
No, it's not because Muslims represent only 20% of Muslims in the United Kingdom work.
Who's talking about
Because
Muslims?
I am talking. There are certain elements
Your microphone, dude, is
of society.
cutting out a lot.
Point B.
Check your connection, Lebens. You're not coming through all the way.
It's because
Do you think that 80% of the Muslims in the country are like clogging? They're sitting on your internet line. Do you think they like walk over it all day so that you can't preach the truth to the Discord channel about the evils of colored people in the UK? Well, maybe they're jumping right now. Okay, American ethnostate. Wait, so like, yeah, so it seems to me that like if you have people that are born into like disproportionately fucked circumstances, you would want to feed these people and take care of these people in the hopes that they can turn their lives around, so that they can turn.
If I am a dude, that's like the biggest appeal to me too, like libertarianism, capitalism, whatever you want to call it. It's like how close. All right, so let's just clear the air on this real quick, just for me, educate me real quick. What's the difference from like capitalism, true capitalism, and libertarianism? Is there a huge difference?
Libertarianism is I should know this. Capitalism is just an economic form. Libertarianism speaks to government as well, right? I don't think capitalism necessarily speaks to the form of government at all.
No, capitalism absolutely speaks to government, because if like the government puts regulations that regulate the market, that's regulating the economy.
Couldn't you have like a dictatorship that is still like a capitalistic system? Well, let's ask our friend Wikipedia.
You're controlling the government by saying the government cannot have regulations on the economy.
Yeah, so capitalism is an economic system based upon private ownership of the means of production. So libertarianism is a collection of political philosophies and movements that uphold liberty as a core principle. They seek to maximize political freedom and autonomy, emphasizing freedom of choice, voluntary association, and individual judgments. They believe in individual rights. I mean, I'm sure that like a hardcore capitalist, I mean, I share a lot in common with libertarianists. I just acknowledge more market failures than the average libertarian would. Sorry,
do capitalists, do they still believe in some form of like taxes and whatnot?
Yeah, of course. You should.
And regulation on business?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Well, here, okay, so do you know, like, if I were to ask you, like, what a market failure is, could you describe something like this? Like, what is a market failure?
No.
Okay, so the free market exists. However, sometimes problems will arise in the free market that the free market can't solve for a variety of reasons. Some problems just can't be solved by open markets. This is where a capitalist would acknowledge, hey, having somebody like the government come in to regulate this would be beneficial because capitalism can't solve this problem.
Okay, so you're saying having no welfare for these poor, oppressed people that just didn't get a fair shot in life, that would be a market failure.
Well,
it would cause
it would cause a lot of problems in markets. Yeah, it would be really bad for sure.
How so?
Okay, let's say that I make $100,000 a year and I do construction work in my city. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know if you know where Nebraska is. It's kind of a medium-sized Midwestern city, okay? So let's say that in my city, let's say that half the city is poor, destitute, no education, they're all fucked or whatever, right? These areas are probably going to require more policing. They're probably going to have more crime. And overall, they're just going to be like a negative blight on everything related to my city. Let's say that of my $100,000 a year, let's say I pay 10% in taxes and I, make my shit money or whatever. Let's say that somebody comes along and they say, hey, we're going to actually tax wealthy people a lot harder and we're going to redistribute some of your wealth to fix up the other parts of the city. So we're going to increase the spending on education, we're going to increase the spending on law enforcement, et cetera, and we do these things so that with the goal of building up the other part of the city to be as good as the left part of the city, the western part of the city, right? The idea is that over time you would rather have a large city of successful people because, one, it gives you more customers. Two, it gives you more educated employees. Three, it gives you more.
Just giving these people money. How's that quantified?
I'm not in favor of just giving people money. I'm in favor of like targeted welfare. So things like education spending is probably.
By the way, can we agree that it would be a prudent?
Your microphone keeps cutting out. I can't understand.
Lemons, you need to try and fix your mic before you try and talk.
I don't know if your internet connection, it might be your internet connection, or it might be the sensitivity on Discord too, maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, American Ethnostate.
The Jews are throttling him.
Basically, the idea is that, like, I would rather be part of a very successul country than be, like, a king of dust. Like,
would the spending on education, is that under welfare?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're spending more on poorer people than wealthier people. Wealthy people don't need spending on education. You can afford it. You just go buy it. I can go pay for when my kid goes to college. I don't need the government to help me with it. Like,
so wait, wouldn't schools be privatized? Or do you want schools to be privatized? I guess not.
No, definitely not. That's a horrible idea.
Why is that a horrible idea?
Because, in my opinion, this comes down to philosophy a little bit. I think that education should be a great equalizer, that education should give anybody, empower anybody to achieve whatever they want in life. If you privatize education and you make it so that you have to pay for it, it means that wealthy people have a way to perpetuate their wealth and poor people have a way to perpetuate their poorness.
Isn't that what, like, Common Core does? It ensures everybody's getting equal education.
Common Core just changed the approach to a lot of how curriculums are designed. by setting out like common
Has
standards.
nothing to do with just to ensure everybody's getting the same education.
Well,
by the way, is the mic fixed? Pardon my interruption, please.
yeah, it sounds better now.
Okay, excellent. Destiny, I wanted to very briefly ask
Wait,
you an important
can I just respond real quick? So Common Core, I think, was a federal list of guidelines for things that students should be able to do by the end of a particular curriculum. That I think that's all Common Core was. It was like a student at the end of 4th grade should be able to read this or should be able to work on this kind of math is what Common Core was. I don't know.
Anyway,
how I'm supposed to
what I would
respond
like
that.
to debate you on, Mr. Destiny.
I was in the middle of a conversation with American Ethnostate.
Sorry, please continue. Pardon.
Okay, American Ethnostate. Did you have any final points that you wanted to wrap this meme up with?
I don't know. Oh yeah. So like we both have to acknowledge that like if we let this play run its course, we're like whites are going to be within like 30 years time we're going to be less than like 40%.
Sure, maybe.
The demographic. Okay.
Specifically concerning
so like, if I told you that
Sweden.
if I told you as like say this hypothetical, if I told you as soon as whites lost like went below 40% of the U.S. population that like say we lost the first, Second Amendments, everybody was now paying like 30% flat tax. Is it like would you say that's like a problem?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, it's a hypothetical. Would you find that a problem?
Yeah, I wouldn't want the First Amendment to be repealed. Sure.
Okay. All right. So we agree. Like I believe.
I don't think you can describe
whites,
a mechanism though by which white people will become a plurality instead of a majority, and then all of a sudden all of our amendments just start getting rolled back. I don't think that's going to happen.
You don't think these people that vote in margins upwards of 70% against like the things that you and I would hold dear?
I don't think you and me hold very much in common, dear. I think we probably are about as diametrically opposed on most positions as possible.
I find myself like buying into the whole like libertarian meme from time to time again.
I am not a libertarian.
I mean, I'm sure there's something we could agree on, Destiny.
Maybe, but I'm not going to have very much in common with you, and I would never want to stand next to you in any sort of political aisle, so I don't think that you and me have very much...
Destiny, you're hurting my feelings.
Okay.
All right, I guess we're done.
All right, well, listen, buddy, I love you. I'm sorry that you had to walk back on
you.
every single point you made. Good luck in the Ethnostate.
Yeah. I'll be more prepared next time, Destiny.
Okay.
Don't you worry about a thing, kiddo.
It's all right, buddy. Be careful. Stay safe.
Unban me, please, though.
Okay. Probably not. All right, what's up, other dude? I got very short fuse for this. Oof.
Howdy ho. So I legitimacy of kosher child.
Your microphone is fucking up again. You're setting my fuse off.
About pornography with you.
It's cutting out a lot. Levins.
I've
You gotta
been-
fix it. It's cutting out a lot.
Okay.
Yo, Levins, if you're gonna go on the intense Jew conspiracy thing, like you need to at least fix the mic.
Wait,
you got it? Can you just either?
He said give him 5 minutes. I don't know
Yeah.
if Destiny wants to wait.
I'll
that
talk
long.
a little bit on his behalf in regards to the Jews for a moment here.
Well, just
So,
let me say something to Levins though. Levins, what you should do is just turn on push to talk and talk close to your mic. That's probably going to solve whatever it is. Don't worry about the voice activation level. That'll probably just become confusing. If you turn on push to talk, then when you're pushing, it's recording you.
Okay. Well, I'll pick up a little bit here. So he's probably going to say something along the lines of like, in the case of the United States, Jews make up like 96% in representation in media. That includes Hollywood, television, like news organizations.
I don't think Jews are 97% of Hollywood, but like for media owners.
Well,
and whatnot,
I think that's just a general number.
Okay.
But so like they're supremely overrepresented in all these fields.
Yeah, and some in
But
financial.
even though
yeah.
they only make up like 2% of the U.S. population, and it's not that their overrepresentation is the problem, but it's what they're doing with this influence that they have, and they're using it to spread this like exactly degeneracy, as he said it. And degeneracy,
What degeneracy?
like,
Can we talk about degeneracy? Like
something that just like we'll define what degeneracy is. Something that like kind of corrupts the nuclear family.
Okay, I don't agree that that's degeneracy. I don't even know if I agree that the nuclear family needs to be the cornerstone of society.
Is, subjective.
Okay, well, but if degenerate,
specifically, okay, is it fixed now?
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Concerning the Jews, they own the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the Bank of England, and all subsidiary banks associated with it, and turn everyone into Shabosh Goyim debt slaves ever since the meeting on Jekyll Island. Let's see. I wanted to discuss specifically kosher child pornography with you as a topic, Mr. Destiny.
No, I'm good on that one, dude. I'm not going down this road.
Okay, please leave then.
Any vegans in here should absolutely be against Jews and their practices regarding food.
Okay,
absolutely. If you guys
I'm
like
against kosher
abuse,
slaughter
you
if
guys
that's what you mean.
Jews.
Like, if you mean actually, no. Israel is like a really high percentage of vegans, so it's like the second highest in the world, I think.
I'm pretty sure Israel has the most vegans per capita. But I might
let's try and keep this between.
Wait. I thought he was done with.
Yeah, I want to talk about specifically kosher child pornography.
I'm not having a conversation about child pornography with you. No.
Yeah,
why not, my good man?
Because I don't feel like getting fucking quote sniped. I'm not having this conversation. Nope, I learned my lesson.
I'd love for Lebens to just explain to Destiny the global Jewish pedophile child sacrifice thing.
Is child porn okay?
Yeah, sure. So the elite traffic, torture, rape, murder, sacrifice, blood drink, and organ harvest from children.
And they're also Jews, right?
No, they're not necessarily all Jews.
They're mostly Jews?
Wait, what are we talking about?
I'm saying that there is a Luciferian cult.
Okay.
But that is not the topic that I wish to discuss tonight. The topic I wish to discuss is ethical CP.
I'm not having this conversation.
He doesn't want to have that conversation.
Well, I mean,
porn is okay.
I don't think Destiny has ever said that, but okay. Who's in the background? Holy shit.
Oh, sorry, that's probably...
Brap.
I want to know the best potential arguments for ethical CP.
I'm sure you could find some, dude. Ask some of your anti-Jewish friends. Don't you guys aren't you all into like lolicon and shit anyway? I mean, how far of a stretch is cheap CP from that?
Also, Lebens, if he doesn't want to engage you on a particular thing, then don't like. I mean, you can't force him to debate your CP thing with you. Just if you want to talk about the crazy Jew conspiracy, the very real.
Is Lebens like a big child pornographer or advocate? Does he really like it? Or?
No, he's not.
No, I would have them hang by their entrails in the public square, which is going to happen in Guantanamo with particularly heavy military trials going on this month and the next. And, gentlemen, there is a Hillary Clinton pedo-cannibal snuff tape online. You can find it at Best Score if you like, called Snaggle Drip.
Hey, whoa, chill. Damn. Advertise gore here? What the fuck?
I'm not advertising gore. I'm informing you that this is going to drop to the public, that Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin, in a well-lit room for 23 minutes,
oh my God, you really believe this?
Repeatedly raped a little girl. Yes, I do. Repeatedly, I've heard the audio. Repeatedly raped a little girl with multiple objects, proceeded to flay her face off and begin to eat parts of it while wearing her face as a skin mask.
Okay, listen. Lebens. Wait.
her throat and drink her blood.
Okay, Lebens. I want to ask you, okay, I'm going to be 100% real. You said you're recording, right?
Correct.
Okay, can you lay out, I want you to lay out from start to finish. I will not interrupt you a single time. I want you to lay out from start to finish your entire theory on how you think Jews are controlling the media, what they do with that control, and what their final goals are, okay? Can you go ahead and lay that out for me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, go for
it. They gravitate...
All right, we're playing Terraria. I'm not doing this, dude. Nope.